City Council meeting to order, please, for Tuesday, June 21st. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bertani.
Here.
Councilmember Moy.
Here.
Councilmember Panduro.
Here.
Councilmember Tim.
Here.
Councilmember Tonneson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro.
Here.
And Mayor Price.
Here, and we do have a full council. Roll call, please. We're all set.
Yes.
Invocation will be led this evening by Worship Pastor Mark Lecheminant, Church of Jesus of Latter-day Saints. Sir, if you would, please.
We are so grateful for the opportunity we have to meet together tonight as members of the community and as community leaders. We're grateful for the love which thou bestows upon us as manifest through thy Son, Jesus Christ. We're thankful for the favorable circumstances in which we gather. We're grateful to be safe. We're grateful for this community in which we live, for those who devote their time and attention and efforts to keep it safe, and for those who teach and lead. We're prayerful now as we address the business of this evening, that thy Spirit will be with us, that we can have the blessings and gifts of discernment and understanding to be mindful of the needs which are in our community and address them appropriately, that those who need to be heard will be heard, that we can be mindful of those who may feel pain or marginalized in our society, that we can reach out to them. We're grateful for the wonderful work that's done by community leaders as well as religious leaders. We're grateful for the youth that are with us tonight and their representation. Pray for them and for their growth and opportunities to be productive and serve here in our community. We're prayerful now that we will enjoy one another's company, and we do this humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
And thank you very much, Pastor. And we're very privileged this evening to have Boy Scout Troop 100 here to present the colors and do the Pledge of Allegiance for us. So, gentlemen, if you would begin, please.
Color attention. Audience attention. Color forward march. Color guard. Hold. Color guard prepare. Both colors. Salute. Color post colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Two. Color reform. Color guard about. Place. Color guard forward march. Color guard hold. Color guard distance. Audience may be seated.
And we turn now to council reports, please. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
We'll start with Councilmember Panduro. Your report.
Hi, everyone, and welcome this evening. So good to see everybody here. Thank you for the opportunity to share just a little bit about, I just wanted to just give thanks. I had two events this past since we last met. I had a community city hall, and then I also had a cleanup. And so I just wanted to give a thanks to the North Texas Business Street Association for assisting me with the cleanup, but also Public Works was a big help, and all the organizations that came out that day to help clean up North Texas, and everyone that came out to my community city hall at the park. We had a lot of good conversations, and so I'm looking forward to continuing to do more things out at Dover Park and Tabor Park, so look out for those. Thank you.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tim?
Yeah, just real quickly, a shout out to Pam Bertani and the city of Fairfield. Juneteenth was so much fun Saturday. It was terrific. There was a great turnout. Pam, kudos to you. You got it rolling, and I look forward to many, many more. So,
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. It's a team effort, believe me, and you're going to meet the team in just a second.
Mayor, thank you.
Councilmember Moy?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you all for being here, and Troop 100. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for being here. It's a real honor to have you. We'd like to have you every meeting if the mayor would allow it. I'm sure he would, because he loves you, and we all do. But anyway, I just want to announce I'm going to be having a couple of town hall meetings. The first one is on June 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. And we're going to be having a discussion with some experts and a couple of parents who have been impacted by fentanyl. We had a 15-year-old Armio student who died recently. She was poisoned by fentanyl. She took a pill and thought it was something else. She had one pill and she died. And so this is, right now, it's becoming almost an epidemic in Solano County. We're losing one person a week right now from fentanyl poisoning in Solano County, according to the county's statistics. And so I thought it was time that we took a real look at this in the public and not be afraid to talk about it, because we have to educate ourselves. Young people need to educate themselves and educate their friends and about this. It is really scary. It's sold on social media, and it has all kinds of little fun names, and people buy it, and many times it ends in great tragedy. And so that's what we'll be talking about. And again, we'll have two mothers who have lost children, a child and a niece. And that's going to be online, so everybody can look at it from at home. We'll be doing it on Facebook Live, and you can go to the city's website and look for the link for that. But I'd sure love to see you all there and help me spread the word about this, because it's hitting all of us very hard. And then on July 14th, I'm going to be having a town hall meeting here inside the chambers here from 6 to 8. And this one is going to be about cleaning up Fairfield. A lot of people, including folks that Councilwoman Panduro and I interviewed for the Youth Commission, all brought up the fact that there's a lot of garbage around Fairfield. And part of it is we're a windy city, and part of it is people throw their garbage out the window. And so this is going to be some new things that are happening right now in this city, and then how everybody can be involved, because we have to. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? So anyway, so those are the two things, and I look forward to you all being here, calling in, giving me ideas, and that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bertani, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. It's always a better meeting when we have a full chamber, so it's really good to see all of you. I'm glad to see my colleagues out in the community and having town hall meetings. It's important for us to engage, and we made that commitment at our last our meeting in January, or was it February? And so I'm glad to see everyone's doing that. I am going to be having a town hall meeting, the third in a series that I've had over the last couple of months, on Saturday, June 25th. This one will be in Rolling Hills, and it'll be at the Donnell Center, which is at 3351 Hill Ridge Drive, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Rolling Hills. Looking forward to seeing you there. Now, all I can say is thank you. Thank you so much for the support that we saw on Saturday at the Juneteenth Festival. As you all know, Juneteenth is a big deal. And it's a big deal because the 4th of July in 1776 didn't work for black people in America. And it would be another, 89 years after that first 4th of July. And it would be another 339 years after about 400,000 Africans were ripped from their homes and shackled to slave ships and sold into American slavery. So that's a long, long time. We finally got it done, at least on paper, because if we're talking about Juneteenth, we're talking about unity, we're talking about freedom, and we're also talking about oppression. And we're talking about oppression in a country right now that still struggles with the oppression of people of color. But I thank God, because this is still America, and we are still Americans. And that means that we still have a shot to do better. And so the progress that we make, we'll make it together, and we will continue to unite like we did on Saturday, and to raise awareness, which is really, Saturday was really about raising awareness and really about community. And it was just a wonderful event. When I read the proclamation for Juneteenth in a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask some very special people to come stand beside me, because these are the folks who really made it happen. I appreciate you thanking me, but it was a complete team effort. And believe me when I say that God was definitely with us. Oh my goodness, I've got stories. So I'll leave it at that for now. Just want to thank everybody once again. And I'm going to be calling some staff up too, because, I'm extremely proud of the way that this city and this staff stood behind this event and in the trenches, literally last minute doing things that just you couldn't believe could happen at the last minute, but did. But we showed up, God showed out, I would say. And so we'll be talking a little more about Juneteenth when I read the proclamation. That's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, like everyone else said, I was honored to attend on Saturday, and Pam, that was awesome, and everything you've done to help organize it. And I know that there's other people that helped also, but you in the position as a council person and taking the lead, you deserve some kudos without a doubt. And it's been a long time coming, just like I said on Saturday. Should have been here a long time ago, a festival like this, but it was great. The only thing I wanted to say is since the last meeting, myself and Councilwoman Pandora both attended the 2x2 committees at the county office, and that's for people who don't know what that is. It's two people from each city in Solano County dealing with the homelessness issue in our county, and we're also working with two of the Board of Supervisors are on this committee now also. And we are going to be meeting again in July. It's a public meeting, so anybody can come. And I'd encourage people to show up. It'd be great. And we're still talking about the restructuring of CAP Solano, and that's the funding source for the homelessness issue, and one of them at least. And I'm just proud to say that the city's finally, after my 14th year here on the city council, are starting to work together on such an issue like this. So it's really, it's enlightening, it's encouraging, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. That's my report for the night. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I should like to report that Willow Hall was very busy the last couple of weeks. And it began with a series of formal dinners hosted by churches as well as the Puerto Rican Kidney Cancer Foundation, and it was very, very impressive, both of those events. Well attended, people came from all over the Bay Area, and they were dressed to the nines. And that was followed then by a series of graduations from charter school students who were graduating from high school. and there are about 1,000 charter school students in California. 28 of them come from Solano County, 26 of them are Fairfield residents. Pretty impressive, taking a look at how serious they were about continuing their educations and getting their high school diplomas. And I was also impressed, as I was with Rodriguez High School's graduation. It was significant, the number of those high school students who said they wanted to go into medicine, they wanted to go into engineering, and they wanted to become teachers and professors. Pretty impressive. Wonderful experience. Great time to serve on city council colleagues. And Mr. City Manager, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two quick items. I want to give a quick shout out to our Marketing and Outreach Division. Recently, they were recognized with 9 Telly Awards, including 1 gold for their work on the 50-year anniversary. And so the Telly Awards are a committee that started in 1979 to honor excellence in local, regional, and cable television commercials and broadcasting. So excellent work by them in getting that recognition by this national body. And then the second thing is just a reminder, since we won't see folks before then, coming up in just about a week and a half on Monday, July 4th, we have our community parade. Downtown starts at 10 a.m. And then it's immediately following that, there are family activities. So usually those start around 11 a.m. We hope to see everyone out there, as it's going to be a great and spectacular event once again. That's my report, sir.
And are there any changes to the agenda?
Just one, item number 15 on consent. Staff requests that we pull that from the agenda. We'll bring that back to council at a later date.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. City Attorney, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 items to report out of closed sessions. The first is confirmation of a settlement previously approved by the City Council on a 7-0 vote in the matter of Jeffrey Drevdahl versus City of Fairfield, case number 2:20-CV-00859-DB, filed in the United States District Court, Eastern District of California. The City Council had authorized a settlement of $100,000, and that was finalized earlier this month. The second item is a update on public employee appointment to extend the contract of the interim city manager, David Gassaway, to December 31st, 2022, and that will be approved in this meeting in open session as item 16 on the consent calendar. And third and finally, in conference with legal counsel in the case of Hansabin Investments LLC, which is a bankruptcy case in docket 22-30258, filed in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court, Northern District of California, San Francisco Division. The council approved 7-0 the retention of outside counsel to protect the assets of the City of Fairfield in collecting a debt from Hansabin Investments LLC. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I wanted to say how much fun my husband and I had volunteering at Fairview Elementary School. I know some of you were there for their carnival. That was earlier in June. And then also I got to go to the Warriors Parade yesterday and saw all of the the whole team and all the coaches and executive staff. It was a blast. So thank you.
Presentations, Madam Clerk, please.
Yes, our first presentation is a poem reading, Juneteenth, by our Poet Laureate, Bonnie D. Michelle.
Thanks. Juneteenth originated in Galveston, Texas, 1865. Some must have thought that day would never arrive. For years, Jubilee Day observances tended to ebb and flow. We now can see the results of those seeds that we still now sow. As immigrants set foot upon this fertile soil, they worked upon their dreams, which often came amongst great toil. Whence they met with neighbors, they grew in common goals, realizing those inequities that kept them all from being whole. It's now that we give honor to this day that long has been a slow and rumbling undertone that may wash away a sin. I would also like to share a few quotes that I found meaningful to this Juneteenth commemoration. I will begin with Dr. Martin Luther King, minister. We may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. From Oprah Winfrey, talk show host. Turn your wounds into wisdom. My favorite, Mahatma Gandhi, leader of India. Be the change you wish to see in the world. I often wear this quote around my neck as I'm doing tonight. A beautiful visual from Maya Angelou, American poet. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. And lastly, Ralph Ellison, American novelist. America is woven of many strands. I would recognize them and let it so remain. Our fate is to become one and yet many. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And the mayor has something he'd like to present to you.
And Bonnie, on behalf of the City Council and the more than 120,000 people who live in Fairfield, thank you very much for being our Poet Laureate for these past 2 years. And so, the plaque reads, Bonnie D. Michelle, Poet Laureate, in appreciation for your service to the City of Fairfield, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. You've made a difference. Indeed, you have. And I'm quite certain that as a result of your being Poet Laureate, people throughout Fairfield and California are going to pay more attention now to poetry and how succinct messages can be conveyed to everybody. So congratulations, my dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Madam Clerk, our second presentation,
Yes.
please.
And next we have proclamation declaring Juneteenth National Independence Day, presented by Councilmember Bertani.
Thank you very much, everyone. I am going to ask some very special people to come join me in commemorating Juneteenth and reading this proclamation. First off, this is the Fairfield Clergy Action Network, or Fairfield CAN subcommittee. These folks have been meeting with me every Saturday morning for the last several months and giving very generously of their time in order to really get this Juneteenth festival planned and executed well. So let me ask my pastor, Pastor Anthony Gilmore, to come up, Bethel Community Church, Pastor John Reed, Fairfield Church of Christ, Pastor Karen Stetton, St. Mark's Lutheran Church, and Renee Trotter, Lamb of God in Christ Ministries. I'd also like you to join me up here, Tamori Richardson. She's the president of the Solano County Black Chamber of Commerce. All of the vendors that you saw on Saturday, Tamori single-handedly organized and executed every single vendor. Having these folks on your team, this is like having a whole squadron of ninjas who know how to get it done when it really, really counts. Jeff Traeger, come on up. Jeff Traeger helped us plan the talent. Who had fun dancing to the music? I heard Chuck Tim was cutting some serious moves. That's what I heard. I would also, is Kelly here? Kelly Ballard, Esther Beavers. I know David Gassaway is in here. Come on up, David. Yes, sir. Come on over. Chief Cantrell and Matt Luckenbach, please come up. And I want to just thank, this is what Juneteenth looks like. This is what Juneteenth looks like. All right, and these are our efforts moving together. This is how we roll. We've had a tremendous help from the police department. Fire showed up, they were there all day, police was there all day. We did not have one incident, I don't think. Everything ran smoothly, and I know that's partially because they looked up and saw, our police and fire there and just said, let's just all get along. So I'm gonna make a special request and ask, and I think I already mentioned this to Kelly, that I would like for a copy of this proclamation to be given to every single one of the people standing behind me to commemorate our Fairfield Clergy Action Network sponsored first annual Juneteenth Festival. And believe me, it will be annual, and it will just get better and better and better. So if we could have a proclamation for each of the individuals standing behind me, that would be great. Before I read the proclamation, would anyone like to say anything? Okay. All right. So let me read the proclamation, and then we'll get one of these into your hands, okay, for you to commemorate this event. Whereas June 19th, known as Juneteenth, and officially named Juneteenth National Independence Day, is also known as Freedom Day and the day of the Emancipation Proclamation. It's a federal holiday in the United States commemorating the anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Texas on June 19th, 1865, which, by the way, is about 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was actually signed in 1863. Whereas Juneteenth's commemoration is on the anniversary date of June 19, 1865, announcement of General Order Number 3 by Union Army General Gordon Granger proclaiming freedom for enslaved people in Texas, which was the last state of the Confederacy with institutional slavery. And whereas the day was recognized as a federal holiday on June 17, 2021, when President Joseph R. Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law, becoming the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day was adopted in 1983. And whereas celebrations date back to 1866, at first involving church-centered gatherings in Texas, spreading across the South, and becoming more commercialized in the 1920s and 1930s, often centering on food festivals. And whereas during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, as you might imagine, these celebrations were eclipsed by the nonviolent determination to achieve civil rights, but grew in popularity again in the 1970s with a focus on African American freedom and arts. And whereas beginning with Texas by proclamation in 1938 and by legislation in 1979, every U.S. state and the District of Columbia have formally recognized the holiday in various ways. And whereas celebratory traditions often include public readings of the Emancipation Proclamation, singing traditional songs such as Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Lift Every Voice and Sing, and the reading of works by noted African American writers such as Ralph Ellison and Maya Angelou, as we saw this evening from our poet laureate. Whereas Juneteenth celebrations also include rodeos, street fairs, cookouts, family reunions, park parties, historical reenactments, and Miss Juneteenth contests, and the first annual Fairfield Juneteenth Festival. Now, Mayor Harry T. Price, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, hereby proclaims June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth National Independence Day in the City of Fairfield, and the mayor urges citizens to educate themselves about the historic significance of this day and to embrace our city's ethnic and cultural diversity. I am so extremely proud of everyone here, the City of Fairfield, and everyone standing behind me. Let's give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you, and I would be remiss to not say just a few words about Councilmember Bertani. She is always so incredibly gracious about recognizing everybody else that does everything, but she doesn't take a whole lot of credit where she should. The Fairfield CAN, which stands for Community Action Network, was her idea, and it wasn't just her idea. But she has put an incredible amount of energy and time and effort into bringing not just this group, but a much larger group of clergy throughout the city together in order to do not only events like this, but we have many things planned for the future and a big partnership with Travis as well. And so, you know, Fairfield can and has and will continue to do great things because Council Member Bertani is a force to be reckoned with if you don't already know that. So I just would like us to give her a round of applause, please, for her work.
Thank you, Chief Cantrell, for those kind words. I think that we have a multiplicity of forces to be reckoned with standing up here right now, and that's what's up, and that's why it all happened. And God is with us. Yeah, and when God is with us, nothing can stand against us. So thank you. Let's get our proclamations to the folks standing behind me, and congratulations on a job well done. All right, thank you.
And our third presentation, Mr. Vice Mayor, if you would please.
Yes, proclamation declaring LGBTQ Pride Month, presented by Vice Mayor Rick Vaccaro to the Solano Pride Center Board member Bernardo Ortega.
Bernardo.
Thank you.
So before I read the proclamation, I believe it was last year, correct, Mayor, was our initial flag raising of the Pride flag outside. And I know that's been a long time coming, but I'm glad that now it's every year in the month of June. So I'm honored to read this proclamation, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, June 2022. Whereas 53 years ago, in June 1969, a riot at a Manhattan gay bar, the Stonewall Inn, in retaliation to a police raid, precipitated the modern fight for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer rights. And whereas because of acts of courage from those who demanded justice, and for those who quietly pushed for progress, our nation has made great strides in recognizing what these brave individuals long knew to be true in their hearts, that love is love, and that no person should be judged by anything but the content of their character. And whereas 2015's landmark Supreme Court decision was a historic victory for LGBTQ Americans, guaranteeing marriage equality in all 50 states, ensuring dignity for same-sex couples, and therefore all couples. And whereas for every partnership that was not previously recognized under the law, and for every American who was denied their basic civil rights, this monumental ruling instilled newfound hope, affirming the belief that we are all freer when we are all treated as equals. And whereas despite this extraordinary progress, LGBTQ Americans still face discrimination simply for being who they are, and there remains much work to do to extend the promise of our country to every American. And whereas in memory of the 49 victims of the 2016 Pulse nightclub massacre in Orlando, transgender individuals murdered for who they are, and a history of violence against the community, it is ever more important that we continue to push for equality, protections, and acceptance of the LGBTQ people everywhere. And whereas 2022 is the 23rd year of the LGBTQ community coming together to show our pride in Solano County through service and support of the community in the organization known as Solano Pride Center and Vallejo Gay Network. And whereas the LGBTQ community was hit harder than most by the COVID-19 pandemic because of healthcare disparities and economic instabilities. And whereas during Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, as we wave the flags of pride high and march boldly forward in parades and demonstrations, let us celebrate how far we have come and reaffirm our steadfast belief in the equal dignity of all Americans. And whereas the City of Fairfield proudly stands with the LGBTQ community and with all communities who struggle for basic human rights, for acceptance, visibility, safety, acknowledgement, and equitability in the quest for full equality under the law. So now, therefore, I, Harry T. Price, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, California, do hereby proclaim June 2022 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month in the City of Fairfield to remind everyone to work together, to advance the principles upon which our great nation was founded and to celebrate the great diversity of the city of Fairfield. Thank you.
Testing. Okay. So first, I want to thank everyone for coming and joining, and thank you, everyone here in the City of Fairfield Chamber of Commerce, for this proclamation. As a long-term, person here in the City of Fairfield, it's always been my dream to receive this proclamation. So thank you again. And I just want to, on behalf of the queer community here in Fairfield, that we finally are being heard and actually being seen, and to have this it's a big thing. So thank you and happy Pride.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, our next presentation, please.
Yes, our fifth number, item 5, relocation of investigations division. And our presenter is our police chief, Deanna Cantrell.
I don't see that PowerPoint on here. If you would, Mr. Mayor and Council, I didn't see that PowerPoint on there. If you'll indulge me for just a minute, I would really like to introduce somebody to you. Some of you have met her already, but several months ago, the Fairfield Police Department did an extensive nationwide search for a public information officer. You know, as well as I do, how critical communication is, and how critical it really has been for the last couple of years in particular, and transparency and all of the important information and communication that we have with our community and their police department. And so we did a nationwide search, and Jennifer Brantley, who is standing here behind me, just rose to the top of that. And so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about her and give her just a minute to introduce herself. So Jennifer began her career as a public relations and crisis communication consultant in Atlanta, Georgia, before she attended law school, where she and then practiced in the state of Georgia as well as an attorney for several years. Her husband is in the Air Force and just got stationed to Travis. But prior to that, his career had led him to Nebraska, where Ms. Brantley served first as the PIO for the state's largest agency, the Department of Health and Human Services, before she was promoted to serve as the Deputy Director of Contract Administration and Legal Counsel. As the PIO for that department, she worked very closely with the Director of Children and Family Services, where she penned legislative testimony, she coordinated events, she managed crises, and fielded community and media inquiries. And in that position, she worked very closely with the CEO of the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the governor of that state. She most recently worked in England, where she just came back to the United States from, first for Cambridge Consultants and then for the U.S. Air Force at Royal Air Force Lakenheath in England, where she received several Air Force level awards, including the Brigadier General Wilma Bott Visionary Leadership Award. And so we are so excited to have her with us, and just think that she is going to really elevate the communication from the police department. So Jennifer, if you would please come up, say a few words.
Thank you very much, Chief Cantrell. Good afternoon, council members, mayor. Very briefly, so I think bios do a great job of encapsulating in a few sentences who someone is and what they've done. But one thing it does not do is capture my passion. So I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm also very passionate, Chief Cantrell, as you know, about the mission of the department. And I look forward to meeting and getting to know so many of you, and also working with you, and of course, advancing that mission and being a part of bridging the gap. It's very small here. I'm very impressed between the department and also the community. So thank you so much for your time. I'm very glad to be here and glad to be back in the United States.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. And we are having an event out at One Lake, LGBTQ event, first one, but with the police department and our LGBTQ community out at One Lake. It's this Saturday starting at 9 o'clock. If anyone wants to join us out there, we'll be glad to see you. So the investigations move. So this has really been a long time coming. I'm going to show you a picture of where they currently are. So that you can really appreciate as much as I know they are going to appreciate this move. So right now, they're at 1100 Texas, and there's 36 staff, full-time staff, and 1 part-time staff that is housed in that building. And I don't know if all of you have been inside there, but if you have, then you know that they are sandwiched inside that building. And the building does have its challenges, especially plumbing challenges, which if any of them were here, they would be so grateful I'm bringing that up. So it does have its challenges, and so we have been looking for a place for them for quite some time, but we really have needed the right location for them, which has been challenging. So we did find the right location. We found a location that the city owns, which is incredible. It's in a great place down in Cordelia and Green Valley. It's right above the library. And the size is great, 10,000 square feet, and it really does meet the community, I believe, and the city's goals in the city. Our response times in the city have gone up over the last few years. I think last year they were 4 minutes and 11 seconds. That's to emergencies and priority 1 traffic. And they've gone up year over year by, 7-8 seconds, but that's a long time, year over year over year, when you start adding that up. And Cordelia and the east side of the city out by Travis have some of the longer response times. As you know, our city is geographically long. It's elongated, and so it does kind of make it difficult for response time. So, this move is being called a substation, and I just want to be really clear about that it is a station where police officers will be. That is definitely true. But it won't be housed 24/7. There won't be staff there 24/7 like the police department, where we have staff that are in and out of the police department here at Webster 24/7. But there will be police officers in and out of that building throughout the day, throughout the week. And we do have some plans to modify that building at some point to where the community can come in and make a report, and we even have talked about having records staff maybe go down there once a week where they could release police reports and they could do vehicle tow releases and those kinds of things to make it more user-friendly for the public. So this is a picture of the current space in Cordelia. As I said, it's right above the library, and it's just beautiful. Really, that space is beautiful, and it's right across from Costco and Safeway and a lot of shopping area down there. We have had a little increase in crime down in that area, and so, I do think this will help with that. People will see police vehicles in and out of there. There is a unit that will be housed there that does drive marked units, and so there will be a handful of marked units that are in and out of there throughout the day. So the total cost so far, it's a little bit higher than that. We're at about $184,000, I believe. And, that money has gone to, the city owns it. It had tenants in the building prior to the police department moving in. And so it did need some tenant improvements to the building, whether we were going to re-rent it or whether the police department was going to move into it. Either way, it would have had to have some work done to it. And so it has had some updating, some painting. We've had to do Wi-Fi, some electrical work, some IT work, and of course it's empty based on the last photo, and so we did have to furnish it. And so that's what most of all of that money has gone to. So like I said, it won't be staffed 24/7, but there will be staff there. And the community, I just want the community to know that they still should call 911. Don't go into their, now you could if it was an absolute emergency and it was a time when it was open, and it had staff in it, you could certainly go contact a police officer there. But if it's an emergency, we want you to still call 911, still call the non-emergency number if you need police to respond to something. And it will be accessible for all of our staff. So any of our staff that are out and about throughout the day can come and go from that building. We do hope to have a small community space there at some point where we could have meetings, and the community could even use that space to have some community meetings. And then, like I said, with some modification that's going to have to be done to the building, I think we will be able to modify it to where the community will be able to come in, meet an officer, and make a report and those kind of things. So, so we're just super excited. We really appreciate your support in this and the community support. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback on this location selection. So, thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Comments or questions, colleagues? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
A very prudent move. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And we turn now to public comments. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. The council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting, but council members may briefly respond to statements made or questions raised by the public, ask for clarification from staff, refer the matter to staff, request staff to report back to the council at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. To speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item. And I do have some speaker cards. Our first speaker here will be Brian Lynch, and he'll be followed by Jeff Traeger.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good to see you. Sir, you have a snake in your city. This snake is unusual because it has multiple heads. The last 2 times I was here, I gave you the first head of this snake. Vacant lots, that's the first head. Over the next several meetings, we're going to go over 4 more heads. I went over the vacant lots here. That sends a message in the city that no one's in control. Then tonight I'm going to give you another message, another head. Next 3 meetings we'll go over 3 more. We're going to go over a conclusion and potentially some reviews. And I'm going to do this because this is how I see it. This is my version of how the organization, the city's organization, is set up. City Council, up at the top, has influence over these snakeheads. Snakeheads influences your city departments, influences issues in the city, down to the residents. You're down here right now, dealing with your issues, stressed out, overworked, running around, dealing with the tail of the snake. We need to deal with the head. Get rid of these issues. Okay, that's done. Done the summary. New focus, artwork. Where is it? In my area, I don't see any artwork. Nothing. Artwork can connect you to your city, connect you to your neighborhood. It gives you a sense of place. Right now, I see my neighbors, they're creating their own sense of place through their anxieties and fears. And that's not a good sense. Their sense is a sense of places, speeding cars, drugs, and crime, and run-down parks. My neighbor behind me, she has an oasis in her backyard, green grass, flowers, pieces of art. She has murals painted on her fence, lit up at night. She understands the importance of artwork to take her away from the stressors and distresses of the area. Gangsters out there, they know the benefits of art. The graffiti art, and they use it to incite and claim, but it works. I say use graffiti to connect and to inspire. At the intersection of Travis and Sunset, there's a 300-foot wall. That's a blank canvas for that whole community there. Blank, doing nothing, sitting there, unused. Have high school students, college students go out there, put up love, unidad, inspire, hope, courage, some words, and then some murals, and then have them sign their names on it, write them a letter, give them a couple $1,000s for their program at school, and done.
Would you conclude, please, Brian?
Thank you for your time. Have a good night. Madam Clerk, I do have a few pieces of paper for them to look at. One of them is vacant lots again, because it just gets better the more I research it. And I'm still having trouble with your email. I can't get you emails. That's why we're getting printouts. And it's getting expensive for me. It's even my own company to do that.
Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
Yes, our next speaker is Jeff Traeger, to be followed by Tony Wade.
My man. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this Saturday this Saturday at the Downtown Theater, we have the 12-piece Anthony Paul Soul Orchestra, and on July 10th, the Missouri Street Theater adaptation of Legally Blonde. I also would like to congratulate Pam Bertani and her staff, all the people that participated. It was just great to see, great turnout. I wish I was there earlier, but I was in Vallejo handling the music for the Juneteenth festival there. So, but I understand, it was, when I got there, it was just great. It's such a hard thing to put on, and so I congratulate everybody that was involved. This Friday is the first night of 6 free concerts starting downtown on the lawn, and we're going to take this out to several parks in Fairfield, starting 2 weeks later at Dover. And then we're going to take it out to Ridgeway, out in Cordelia later on. But we've got quite a lineup, and I want to thank everybody. There's a lot of people in this room, you know who you are, who really helped to make this happen, and especially David Gassaway, especially the Park and Rec Department. All of you have a piece of making this happen. I hope this continues. I want to play a little bit of the group Bofunk with Michael Jeffries, former lead singer from Tower Power, part of this group. That's Friday night, 6 p.m. That's when all the shows are. So let's see what I got here.
With this world today, that we can't find a way to be true. What is wrong with this world today, that we can't find a way to be true? We're slipping by the phone, I've been slipping all along, cause I miss you. You hear that girl say? I've been slipping all along, I've been slipping by the phone, cause I miss you. I wanna thank you for letting me be myself, for the girl you love. Thank you for letting me be myself, for the girl you love. Thank you for letting me be myself, for the girl you love. Thank you for letting me be myself.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Our next speaker is Tony Wade, to be followed by Michael Peckner.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, City Council, and City staff, good to be here. And Fairfielders, I'm going to play this video. It's going to do talking for me briefly, and then I'll close out. just aiming to, I don't want to be a New York Times bestseller. Let's put a #1 North Texas Street bestseller. That's what I'm shooting for. So this is the first book, growing up in Fairfield, California, and the new one is not actual size. Lost Restaurants of Fairfield, California. A lot of research on the old restaurants, the people who were behind them, and I'm sure you'll enjoy a lot of interesting stories. I can't go into it right now, I only got a few seconds left. But I do want to give all of you, I'm going to be at Joe's Buffet. I'm going to have pre-publication copies at Joe's Buffet this coming Saturday from 11:30 to 3:30. Then I'll be in Suisun City on the 4th of July as well. So if you want to come by, have lunch, hang out. And for you guys, I have free copies of this postcard to remind you of it, to go buy one. Yeah, I have free copies of the I will leave those for, so, thank you so much.
Tony, can you just leave that music playing in the background for the rest of the meeting?
Tony, you're the greatest ambassador Fairfield could ever have. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Michael Peckner, to be followed by Nora Deason.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm meteorologist Mike Peckner. I live in Cordelia. I am the last volunteer at Cordelia Fire Department. I'm also the weather and climate expert for CBS News in San Francisco. And I provide the county, the city, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week fire weather forecast. But I'm not really here for that. I'm one of the original members of Vision 2020, if anybody here remembers that. And I remember that we talked about sustainability back in those days, in the late 80s, early 90s. And one of the things I'm concerned about is that, and this might possibly also be a zoning issue and a planning commission issue. I cycle every day from my house through the complex of warehouses on Fermi and Fulton and Watt Avenue. And a lot of the trucks that come in there, and there are signs say no parking over 8 feet, and that includes obviously a big rig, that let their trucks continue with their engines on for many hours. One of the things, of course, Rodriguez High School is there. And when you look at our carbon footprint and our carbon emissions here in Solano County and Fairfield, I don't think we're probably doing as good a job as we should to keep looking at those issues. And the reason why I say that is because you look at Business Center Parkway, and they built a huge warehouse on the east side of Green Valley. There's a number of warehouses out there. And those are all going to be trucks coming in off of Interstate 80 into that area. And we have, of course, a huge complex of apartments and other assorted businesses and stuff like that. And I'm thinking that either through the environmental impact report that is supposed to be with those projects and stuff like that, we might not be doing as good a job as we could in keeping those warehouses out along the traditional Cordelia Road and along Highway 12. I would rather not see big projects like that within the city. We're looking at climate change, as you well know. I'm very much involved in that. And when I see a huge structure like that with trucks coming in on Green Valley and off of Interstate 80 and Business Center Parkway, I think that potentially is not good for the city and for its residents. And so I'd like to see either zoning changed in that area or potentially through the Planning Commission that they keep an eye on where they're putting structures that create a lot of traffic and also greenhouse gases. This is something that we need to get a handle on, both city and county, and the city certainly could be a leader in doing that. I realize that electric trucks might be in our future, but for right now, that's a lot of emissions that continue to come into the city, and we're not keeping up with it in the sense that you'd have to probably spread, I don't know, thousands of acres of redwood trees in the county and the city to offset those greenhouse gases. So basically what we're not doing is offsetting climate change, greenhouse gases, and the carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nora Deason. And I don't have any hands raised online, so I think she may be our last speaker.
Good evening, Mayor Price, City Council members. I had to come here to say thank you. Thank you very much to the city staff, Manager David Gasaway and Chief Cantrell. Thank you so much. I understand that it's not a substation, but I personally didn't expect that. Maybe others are hoping that we're getting substation, but just the fact that a significant division in the police department is moving to Cordelia says to the community, we appreciate you. You are part of the city. That's kind of the thing that we've not been feeling for all these many years. So we really, really appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for thinking about us. To me, this is a really huge, momentous occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora. And we don't have any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
No. Did anyone else here wish to speak on public comment? No.
Okay, then we'll go to our next item. I'll call to order the successor agency, please.
Yes.
Madam Clerk?
All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the agency or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item. And that item is on the consent calendar for successor agency.
Do we have any request to speak cards on this item?
I do not.
Okay. I will then entertain a motion to approve the successor agency consent calendar, please. It's been moved by Councilwoman Bertani, seconded by the Vice Mayor.
Is that a unanimous?
Yeah. Anybody
you.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll now convene the meeting of the Housing Authority, please. Thank you.
Yes, the holding of a joint meeting of the City Council and Housing Authority entitles the council members to receive additional compensation of $35 for attending this joint meeting. And I do need to take roll because part of this involves the Housing Authority. Commissioner Bertani?
Here.
Commissioner Moy?
Here.
Commissioner Panduro?
Here.
Commissioner Tim?
Here.
Commissioner Tonneson?
Here.
Vice Chair Vaccaro?
Here.
And Chair Price.
It's unanimous. We're all here, so
Thank you. And then I'll
open the
read,
public hearing, please.
and I need to read the item. Joint public hearing of the City Council of the City of Fairfield and Housing Authority adopting resolutions approving the mid-cycle update to fiscal year 2021 to 22 and 2022 to 23 budget and financial plan. And Mr. City Attorney, I do need to read all of these, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2022-120 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield appropriating the fiscal year 2022-23 budget and updating the financial plan for the City of Fairfield, and Resolution HA 2022-07 of the City of Fairfield Housing Authority appropriating the fiscal year 2022-23 budget and updating the financial plan, and Resolution 2022-121 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield approving the fiscal year 2022-23 general obligation bond property tax rates, and Resolution 2022-122 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield establishing the fiscal year 2022-23 appropriations limit, and Resolution 2022-123 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield making certain findings related to development impact fees, and Resolution 2022-124 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield approving vehicle and equipment purchases for the fiscal year 2022 to 23. And our presenter is going to be Ashley Doyle, our new budget manager.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm here tonight to present a mid-cycle update to the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 budget. As you know, the City of Fairfield takes a biannual budgeting approach where City Council approves a full 2-year budget. Last year, City Council approved the 2-year budget covering fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to propose an update to that budget, primarily focused on 2023. But before going into the changes for 2023, I want to point out a significant proposed change to the 2022 budget. This is an additional transfer of $15.7 million from the general fund into the Intergovernmental Services Fund. $10 million for broadband, $1.5 million for a navigation center, $1 million for the future purchase of a PAL center, and $3.2 million of uncommitted funds for future council initiatives. These funds were the ARPA funds previously recognized as revenue loss in the general fund earlier this year. Now we're going to jump into the proposed changes for the 2023 budget. What we have here is a waterfall chart showing the budget that was approved last year for fiscal year 2023 and the impacts of various adjustments. Our first category is around personnel and includes adjustments to vacancy rates, impacts of new labor agreements, and personnel changes approved throughout fiscal year 2022, which amounts to $3.2 million. There's a $1.1 million increase due to the impact of inflation, which represents 5% increase in non-personnel items, along with some targeted increases specifically around fuel. At our council retreat, we presented a list of all the areas in the city that were severely underfunded. We took this opportunity to more systematically program some of these areas, specifically around our IT and vehicle replacement funds. Currently, these funds rely heavily on one-time contributions from the general fund. The $3.7 million adjustment for fiscal year 2023 sets us on a path to try to avoid those large one-time transfers from the general fund in the future. We are proposing $1 million in budget carryover from fiscal year 2022 to 2023. This represents POs and expenses that were initially programmed for 2022, but due to various timing issues are not going to be recognized until next year. In the original budget, we had anticipated the need for a general fund transfer to the golf courses for the last bond payment. That transfer is not needed, which results in a savings to the general fund of $550,000. In the beginning of this calendar year, we worked with our third-party consultant, Matrix, and updated our cost allocation plan. The cost allocation plan ensures the funds across the city are being charged appropriately. And after the plan was completed, it resulted in a savings to the general fund of almost $500,000. This did result in additional charges to other funds, but we have ensured those funds can accommodate the increases. The last item is a net $100,000 for regional shelter operations. The net amount represents $750,000 of additional expenses offset by the permanent local housing allocation grant. This gives us a final general proposed budget of $129.4 million for fiscal year 2023.
I have a question about the regional shelter operations. Could you go through that math again? You're saying it's $100,000? Tell me about the math again.
Okay, so it's a total of $750,000 that we programmed, but we're using the PLHA grant to fund a portion of that. So the net impact to the general fund is $100,000.
Okay, I got it the second time around. I'm a little slow, sorry. What specifically is that going to be used for? What are the projects?
So that right now is in reserve for the efforts of the 2x2 committee and Cap Solano in order, working to regionalize some of the response. So that's money that's being set aside for regional sheltering and regional navigation. As of right now, there's no specific use for that. We programmed it into the budget for purposes that as the 2x2 potentially gets to a modification at Cap Solano, which we expect hopefully here in the next few months, that whatever that regional body then may need in terms of response to regional homelessness, that funding was placed into the budget and available.
So I'm not going to say it's a slush fund, but it's a fund that's sitting there waiting for something to be spent on.
Correct.
Is that right?
It's in anticipation of the regional approach to homelessness by 2x2.
Okay, maybe Rick or Doris could tell me a little bit more specifically about that fund. What kind of things are you guys talking about using that on?
Well, I mean, I think that right now it's all in progress, and I know that we are expecting the other cities also to have money in reserve to help.
The same amount?
Well, we haven't really just, I think in the July meeting, we're going to talk more about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is not, and if we need the money and it's there, fine. If not, it's not going to be spent.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think having it, slush fund,
Budgeted.
okay, I mean, I understand, but it's good to have it there, because I think basically Fairfield is, it's the county seat, and we are taking
yeah,
we are taking one of the leads on this, and I think, we are one of the biggest cities, but we do expect the other cities to contribute. I know, Doris, I don't know if you want to jump in there, but I know that's something that we've discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that along with us being the county seat and, kind of being the leads of what started the 2x2 and having this now set aside fund, I think we're also able to then, because we are giving a significant amount of time and resources, that we will be able to ask for expectations from the other cities to show measurables and accountability for things. And so as, Councilmember Ricard was saying it's been a process. It's step by step for forming this new Capsolano. And so the last meeting we talked about the bylaws. And so now we're going to talk about something different. So we're kind of taking it in chunks.
Okay.
So we're not quite there yet with regards to any funding or thing. We've talked about it, of course, but we haven't really, with each city individually discussed that.
Okay.
They're going to have more specifics probably after the next meeting.
Oh, that's awesome. The reason why I ask is because I know both of you, and I've known you here longer than Doris, are really pointed about what we're spending our taxpayers' money. A lot of this is coming out of the general fund, and all of it's taxpayer money. And so we have to be accountable for every penny. And so that's why I'm asking, because I just didn't see anything connected to it yet. I thank you very much. I respect that. Thank you.
Want to continue, please?
Okay, next we're going to see the impact of those adjustments over the next few years. For this forecast, we've excluded the impact of the ARPA funds for fiscal year 2022 so we can get a better comparison of more ongoing revenues and expenses. We are projected to end the year with a general fund reserve of 34%, which is represented by that green line. As you can see, we are proposing to systematically utilize the excess reserves to continue to program some of the underfunded areas within the city while maintaining the 20% reserve policy. You might notice expenses are growing at a higher rate than revenues. We've anticipated the slowing of growth in many of our revenue sectors going forward, and some of the expenses we currently have programmed are funded with grants that will be winding down over the next few years, such as the SAFER and PLHA grants. For now, we have programmed the continuation of those expenses into the future, even without those grant funds. Additionally, by year 2025, we will be seeing the full impact of the new 3-year labor agreements. I wanted to take a couple minutes to highlight our transit and golf funds. In September 2021, the Board of Solano Transportation Authority, also referred to as STA, voted to transition the commuter service operations from 2 operators to 1 operator, Soltrans. And since transit is primarily funded through federal, state, and regional grants, and the STA agreement will result in a significant decrease of grant funding that the city will receive. But we have programmed a correlated decrease in operational expenses to accommodate for that. The goal of the agreement was to keep the city whole with as minimal impact as possible. When we look at golf rounds are currently below the record-setting 2021 numbers, but are still trending to be our second largest year on record. The outlook for 2023 looks positive, and with the bond payoff occurring on July 1st, 2023, the golf budget should be able to accommodate ongoing operating costs going forward. Our staff will be developing a plan to address the deferred maintenance needs at the courses once we have completed a full assessment of our facilities. The water fund continues to be healthy despite reserves being utilized for various capital projects and increases in operational costs. The last approved water rate increase went into effect January 1st, 2021, And in this year's budget, we have added a water master plan and rate study to the CIP. This plan will address future capital projects, align operational costs, and provide information around potential rate changes in the future. I also wanted to highlight the city has resumed disconnecting water on past due accounts, but our staff is making every effort to inform and educate our residents of the options available to them, whether that be payment plans or connecting them with resources in our community. The approach to staffing changes during this volatile time and while we more systematically program our budget was to minimize the impact to the general fund. On the left, in green, you will see proposed staffing additions. The HR department is requesting to add a management analyst to provide analytical and project management support and assist with recruiting efforts. The Public Works Department is requesting the addition of a Public Works supervisor dedicated to the building maintenance team to improve efficiencies and provide succession planning within the division. HR and Public Works have both made adjustments to their ongoing operating budgets to accommodate for the full impact of those positions. Additionally, there has been an agreement with the Fairfield-Sassoon Sewer District that the administration of the CCTV program will move from FSSD to the city, which results in the need to add 2 water distribution operators. The city is receiving additional funding from FSSD to cover these expenses. On the right, you will see adjustments to eliminate positions that are no longer required due to changes in operational needs. It's important to point out all of these positions are currently vacant. Oops. We have 3 positions that will need to be eliminated as a result of the STA agreement, and we have a position at MBR that's no longer needed. When the biannual budget was approved, a 5-year capital improvement program was also approved. Some additional projects and adjustments have been identified, totaling $11.5 million, and the major adjustments are summarized here. The funding for each of these projects have been identified, and based on current development forecasts and other funding sources, the city is currently able to accommodate these adjustments. There is a new resolution included for your consideration this evening, and that is for your approval on the vehicle and equipment purchases for fiscal year 2023. Under our current process, in the upcoming fiscal year, our fleet division would come to council 12 separate times for approval to purchase various vehicles. Each time a purchase needs to go to council, it can add up to 6 weeks to the purchasing process, which can continue to result in missing critical purchasing deadlines. In an effort to increase efficiencies and streamline the purchasing process, we are proposing council approve all the vehicle and equipment purchases for fiscal year 2023 as provided in Appendix B during this mid-cycle update. We could be facing some significant challenges in the future. With the feds continuing to raise interest rates, we could see tightening of available cash in the market. We could see housing prices start to drop, which will impact our property tax revenues. If inflation remains high or consumer confidence drops, consumer spending could stall and have a significant impact on our sales tax and Measure P revenues. And our pension liability will continue to be a challenge. Last year, CalPERS had a really strong gain of over 21%, but this year, it doesn't look like they will hit their investment target return, which will have an overall negative impact on our UAL and future CalPERS payments. And as we undergo various master plans across the city, we will begin to see a clearer picture of our overall unfunded deferred maintenance and replacement needs. The city will need to take steps to address those more cohesively in future budgets. Although the current economic climate is quite volatile and there's lots of unknowns, we believe the budget adjustments requested tonight can reasonably be accommodated through fiscal year 2023. We recommend that council adopt the resolutions brought forward this evening, and we have representatives from various departments here if you have any questions.
Moy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a very good presentation. I even understood it, so that's good. I wanted to ask you, are the supply chain issues affecting us being able to get vehicles for our city?
Yes.
How's that working? I mean, what are we doing?
This is one of the solutions, is to
Okay.
bring forward this resolution to help speed up that process, and we can meet some of the earlier deadlines that the manufacturers are putting on us.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
Any comments, Cup?
And I don't have any requests to speak on this item.
Any online?
No.
Okay. I will close the public hearing and bring it back for council action, please.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, you have 6 resolutions before you today. As the city council for the city of Fairfield, you can take 5 of them together in one resolution, and then you would take the one housing authority resolution separately. So if you'd like at this time, if you want to ask for a motion as to resolutions 2022, 120, 121, 122, 123, and 124, you certainly can do that.
Entertain a motion to approve. Been moved by Councilman Tim, seconded by Councilman Bertani. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And next, Mr. Mayor, you would ask for a motion as to resolution as the Housing Authority for resolution HA 2022-07.
Motion to approve. Been moved by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you for an excellent presentation. We turn now to reconvening the meeting of the City Council. Madam Clerk, the consent calendar, please.
Yes, the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the City Council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item.
By Councilman Tim, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Oh, you got a question?
No, Mayor, I want to pull 14 for discussion.
Pull 14, okay. Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve. It's been moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 14, please, Madam Clerk.
And the numbering was off, but I believe 14 is Resolution 2022-131 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of Fairfield and Shelter Solano, Inc. for the provision of emergency shelter beds. And will our presenter be you, David?
Selena. Yeah,
Oh, Selena,
we have
sorry.
Selena here.
Our finance housing analyst, Selena Sanchez.
We have Donna Mullen as well.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to present or you want her to present? Here, why don't I just take this one? We do have a homeless services manager, Don Labar, available with us on Zoom. I'll do my best, given her absence in person this evening, to identify, just give you a quick verbal report on this item. So the resolution before you is to execute a memorandum of understanding with Shelter Solano Incorporated. They are the operators. Shelter Inc. is the operator of Shelter Solano at 310 Beck Avenue. They provide homeless sheltering services here in the city of Fairfield, as well as for other agencies here in Solano County. This MOU would provide a one-year extension of beds. So right now, we pay for, I believe it's 7 beds out of Shelter Solano so that we have access when our homeless services team or our police homeless intervention team makes contacts with homeless individuals that are looking to get into the sheltering program, that we pay for those 7 beds to be reserved. The $300,000 before you tonight would be to increase those 7 beds to 10 beds to further increase our capacity to make sure that we have beds available for those that are on the streets that we make contact with, and would be a one-year extension of the provision of those 10 beds that are accessible to the City of Fairfield 365 days over the next year. Happy to take any questions.
Comments or questions? Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. David, thank you for explaining. And the reason I pulled this is one of the things that I'm not comfortable with going forward is that we pay a rack rate to rent beds. What I would like is to know what the expenditures are from Shelter Solano and what our portion will be, with the understanding that we're looking at going to a navigation center and with the 2x2. And I know you won't have those numbers now, and I'm not opposed to extending this because obviously you need it, our HIT team needs it. But I just, like I said, I don't want a rack rate, just tell us what it's going to cost. So we'll know that up front, and whether we have 10 beds, and what happens if 12 people show up, or Vallejo brings 6, that kind of thing going forward. So John, just going forward, sir, once the budget becomes more apparent, it's like if I buy a car and they ask, do you want a steering wheel? Do you want tires? Yeah, I want the whole car. Just tell me what it's going to cost me. So that's why I pulled it, just to make, my point very clear. And I think going forward, because I won't be here in a year, but somebody will be and they'll ask the same question. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman White, please.
Thank you for pulling it, Councilman Tim. I have a couple of questions, if we can ask. John, I guess you're the best to do this. Thank you. So this is $30,000 a bed for a year, right?
Correct.
And what are our guests getting for that?
So we provide all the same services to all the participants that show up at the shelter.
Right.
So if you think about it, it's not just, the bed, it's not just the food, but it's the case management services that we provide. We also have eligibility specialists, we have employment specialists, and we partner out with something like 30 other agencies throughout the county here, provide the other ancillary services that we have.
Right. So when you get your navigation center up, what's going to be the difference? Because that's pretty much navigating.
Right.
In fact, it is.
In large part, it's the name.
I know.
Right.
You're just changing the name. I get it.
But the biggest piece is, I think, what Councilmember Tim was referring to, is the 2x2 committee. As that comes into play, the whole funding model. So when we first started, our rack rate, as it were, was based on our budget that we had, the revenue that we had. It was about $95 per bed per night. So this is the only shelter I'm aware of that charges a per bed night fee. Right. So last several years, we've gone over that ad nauseum, right?
Yes, that's
so we're looking forward, to the new model. This amounts to about $82 per bed night. So we've known that as we get more revenue coming in to provide the services, the cost per night eventually will go down. Right. And it started to do that over the course of the last year.
How are you doing with that fundraising? That's what it is.
It's a variety of funding sources that we have. Initially it was pretty much just the county.
Right.
And Shelter Inc. invested over $500,000 in those first couple years until the remaining funding came through. So we have partnerships with several different police departments, with North Bay Healthcare, for respite beds. So a wide variety of different sources of funding right now.
But nothing besides those kind of grants. I know down in Contra Costa, you guys do different fundraisers.
No, we raise funds here too in Solano, but as you're well aware, the report that came out quite a few years ago.
Oh, I know.
Right. Every $1 in Solano is about $300 in Contra Costa and about $3,000 in San Francisco. Right.
I get that part.
Right.
And then how many folks do you have right now who are working case managers, let's say? How many case managers do you have right now?
4.
You have 4? Okay.
Right. So,
and about 60 people right now?
No, it's more than that. It's in the 80s, I believe.
Ooh, okay, good.
So,
All right, thank you.
Quite welcome. Any other questions while I'm here?
Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
Yeah, and thank you for pulling it to Councilman Tim, and I agree. I mean, I would extend it, but I would also like to see a change in the future. I think we all kind of agree with the way the model is.
Right.
I'd like to see the shelter, really keep going strong, but I know that it's going to be, and and with the 2x2, and now with the restructuring of Cap Solano, hopefully that there will be more funding coming in, and that's why partnering with the other cities and the county really is critical. Having the county on board is going to be really critical, so that's all I want to say.
Right.
Thank you, Chuck, for pulling.
Councilwoman Bertani, please.
Thank you. How often are the 7 beds that we have now at full capacity every night?
So it fluctuates. What we don't look at is 7 beds on a single night. We look at it over the course of the year. So sometimes we may have 5 people, sometimes we may have 10 people. But what we do, and we've been doing this for a couple years with the city, we track that over time. Because it's not that it's 7 reserve beds right here that have Fairfield on them.
Well, it's not that? I mean, we're paying for those beds, right?
The
the
beds
seven-
don't have names on them. It's the,
But we're
it's the
paying for the
equivalent,
beds.
it's the equivalent of 7 people per night. You may have 5 people some nights, you may have 10 other nights. It's over the course of the year, it averages out to be 7 per night.
Okay, so I think my question was.
There's
how-
always an available bed.
But we're paying for 7 beds a night, right?
Right.
My simple question is, how many nights on average are those beds at full capacity? Because we're
Over
expanding.
the course of the year, 100%.
Okay, I'd love to see some data on that or
The
something.
data's available, we give it to the city on a regular basis.
And so you're saying that now you're at a point where it's justifiable for us to extend, we're at such a capacity that now we need to add another 3 beds, so that now we're paying for 10 beds a night.
The demand is there,
The demand is there.
right?
Okay, yeah, Mr. City Manager, I'd like to see the information.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we started last month. We provide, every month, Shelter Solana provides us with a report card. And
Okay.
I think starting about a month ago, I had forwarded that on to you. We just got, actually last week while I was on vacation, so I haven't yet forwarded it to you, but we got the updated with May's data. So I'll forward that to you now. That way you have that and can see the enrollments by city, as well as the overall performance.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously not opposed to expanding the number of beds. I just want to make sure that they're being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much.
Other comments, colleagues?
I just wanted to, if Selena or Dawn, if they wanted to add anything. Is Dawn online? If you guys wanted to add anything.
If I may add. Yeah, actually, this is Dawn. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So sorry I can't be there in person with you all. I miss everyone. I do want to just kind of further add to Councilmember Bertani's question about how many nights per week are there folks in the bed. It really does kind of fluctuate throughout the week, Councilmember Bertani. We do look at those numbers every day. We work very closely with the HIT team, obviously, so that they have that access for those that they're working with every day. So there are days where we could say that there is no bed available. And there could be a day where we have 2 to 3 beds available. But I can tell you that even if there's a day that all 7 beds are full, Shelter Solano is always gracious enough to take the person if there's somebody that's willing to go into the shelter. I think that's what John meant by, it averages over the time. So I know they have taken folks before when we haven't had a bed available. So this will be an expansion of allowing us to have the additional 3 extra beds. I also want to just kind of elaborate a little bit further on Councilman Tim's point earlier about getting away from that RAP rate, which I like that term better than the bed rate. We are wanting to, I think we're all in agreement, we want to get away from that model. It was never intended to be that way at that facility. And as we move into this regional plan with the 3 different cities, that is absolutely going to be that intent. So Fairfield will have priority over beds at the Fairfield facility, but it won't be a bed number. So it won't be, I have 5 beds, you have 2 beds, you have 1 bed. It will be that Fairfield has priority beds. Vallejo will have priority beds in Vallejo, et cetera. So we will be getting away from the whole bed rate. And if that happens in the next 12 months during the term of this contract, we'll be able to make an amendment to this contract. So this $300,000 will just go toward the new, those new terms under the new 2x2 or restructure or however that works.
Thank you, Don. Very helpful.
Sure. Thank you.
Other comments, colleagues?
Mayor, I'd make the motion to approve.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Tim. Is there a second? Councilman Tonneson, all in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We turn to our next item, please, Madam Clerk.
New business, item 28, City Council direction on contract renewals with Kemper Sports for golf course management and with SRI for food, beverage, and banquet services. And our presenter is Christina Chamberlain, our Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The item before you is to take action or provide us with direction on action with regard to two contracts that will be expiring this December 31st. The first is with Kemper Sports Incorporated, who manages all the golf course operations, and SRI, who provides service lease agreement with the city for restaurant and banquet facility operations and services. So we have before you provided 4 options for direction, and also open to any things that are outside the 4 that we're presenting tonight. And again, seeking your direction tonight on which direction you'd like us to take. So the first that we offer is to extend the contracts for a set period of time and keep fee structures, performance measures, et cetera, as status quo. So it would be just extending as is for whatever time frame that you would want to designate. The second option we're proposing is extending contracts and authorize and direct staff to negotiate with existing providers a modification to terms, fee structures, updated performance measures, et cetera, again, for a set period as you would deem designate. The third would be to solicit an RFP, RFQ, seeking a single operator, or option 4, we're offering solicit RFP, RFQ, separating the golf operation management from food and beverage services. And so with that, we're open for discussion and really just seeking your direction at this point.
Okay, well, since the mayor's not here at this point, do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Dan Bieber wanted to speak, and Carol Hummel.
We go together.
It's right down there on the.
It's right here.
Yeah, it's the green one. Yeah. Can you slide that over just a second? Yeah, it's ready to go right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
All righty. You want to see if I can slide this over here just a touch? There we go. Well, we were just happy not to see our name up there when Tony Wade was doing his presentation on his last book.
The Lost Restaurants.
Yeah, the Lost Restaurants, yeah. Mr. Mayor, council members, and city staff, we want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to make a brief presentation for you this evening. We're here tonight to request a 2-year extension to recoup the losses we incurred during the pandemic. When we signed a 5-year extension 4+ years ago, no one anticipated the pandemic. It was costly and devastating. We have been successful business partners with the city for 29 years, which is hard to believe. It's generational. And believe it or not, this week is our 29th anniversary. Our partnership with the City of Fairfield extends beyond the city itself. It extends into the local community, where we have built many strong relationships. First and foremost of those relationships currently is our strong and seamless partnership with Kemper Sports. Other partners we have are local businesses, local school and educational partners, the community at large, and of course, the city. We have spent 29 years building the Legends and Clubhouse brand in the city of Fairfield. The city is currently going to great lengths to build the city of Fairfield's downtown brand with the investment in the downtown area. We feel that our branding is synonymous with the direction the city is moving. We established the Legends and Clubhouse brand in Fairfield in 1993 at Paradise Valley, and in 1998 the city requested us to take over the Rancho Solano operation as it was failing and becoming a financial burden. Our brands are well known at both sites and have been a successful part of Fairfield's past. As you can see on this graph,
We have had a consistent and sustained growth up until the pandemic hit in 2020. In 2012, we generated $2.9 million in total revenues at both sites, and then growing it to $4.1 million in the last pre-pandemic year of 2019. This is an increase of 42% over an 8-year period. During this same 8-year period, as our food and beverage revenues continue to grow, the golf industry was struggling, and I'm sure we can all remember that, and the golf revenues were declining. Our continued revenue growth was based on the fact that we don't rely on golfer revenue exclusively. 75% of our total revenue can be attributed to a non-golf related spending, i.e. our sports grill, special events, and so on. Our consistent growth is attributed to legends in the clubhouse not being afraid to reinvent themselves. In order to remain successful for over 29 years, you must evolve. And please remember, 42% in 8 years. There we go. We thought that was kind of cute. As you can see, the consistent increase in revenues led to financial benefits for the city. In those 10 years, the city received $3.3 million in rents, which go directly to the city coffers. Sales tax of $2.5 million, for which the city gets a portion of, and then $12 million in wages that we paid our crews, which, as we all know, is recirculated into the local economy. Our revenue and rents far exceed industry standards at municipal golf courses. Before the pandemic hit, the National Golf Foundation conducted a study across the country. To be involved in this study, you had to be a municipal facility, you had to be in a Sun Belt region, which means they operate 12 months a year, and they needed to have more than $2 million in total revenue for golf and food and beverage. When the survey was completed, it showed that the average food and beverage revenue at each of these sites was $810,000. Both Paradise Valley and Rancho Solano generate 2.5 times this industry average. During 2019, each facility generated in excess of $2 million. There is no comparison to the industry average. And then, of course, good old pandemic, right? We were closed for a month. It was takeout only. It was outside dining only. No gathering, wear a mask, we're 6 feet apart. Then we closed again for a while in December of 2021. Staffing then became a real challenge. Banquets were devastated, supply chains affected, and all of the prices were increasing. The overriding message was to stay home, and uncertainty became the norm. Needless to say, it was a challenge operating in that environment. And as a matter of fact, you may all know this, 33% of all restaurants in California closed permanently during the pandemic. We adapted, and fortunately, we were able to absorb the losses. Again, that's why we're here tonight, to ask for the opportunity to recover those losses. Moving forward, we realize the hospitality industry may never be the same. Guest habits have changed. The duration and intensity of COVID has frightened many people away. Safety has become a priority. We are determined to add more fun and safe alternatives for the concerned public. We feel up to the challenge, and we feel we're the most qualified to bring Rancho and Paradise back to its pre-pandemic levels. Please remember, we're local. You have an owner-operator on site and available. Here's a sampling of our recovery plan. We're going to continue to keep up with current food and beverage trends. Fast casual dining is the fastest growing and most popular sector in the restaurant industry. That has been our operational philosophy, our calling card, if you will, since we've opened. As well, we will continue with trivia night. We're trying to coordinate all this. Sports on all the TVs. Casual dining in the bar and grill. And then we have family-friendly community events such as cornhole, grilling and chilling music nights on the patio, outdoor movie nights, paint nights, and of course we're going to continue our holiday events. Valentine's Day, Easter, and Mother's Day. This year, we're actually throwing in a 4th of July event on Sunday the 3rd. Hope you come join us. It's going to be a great event. In January of this year, we began planning and investing in both event centers for the anticipated return of our banquet business. We hired key personnel to assist in continuing to elevate our brand, and we remodeled our sales offices, replaced aging equipment, and much more. In March, we hosted a 5-star showcase and tasting representing what's possible and available at both Rancho and Paradise, showing potential clients what their event could look like. Our showcase demonstrated new and elegant alternatives as we are responding to the changing demographic of the Suisun Valley. Our efforts are paying off. We're seeing increased interest in bookings. In fact, we've booked a $40,000 and a $50,000 wedding, which we have never seen before. We utilize both Instagram and Facebook through social media to market and enhance all of our operations, as many others do. Our social media is the new marketing arena. As well, we also maintain separate websites for both Legends Bar and Grills and for the 2 clubhouse catering events. In closing, today's golf consultants would recommend a single operator as the best model for a municipal golf course. We obviously blow up that model. Our 2 food and beverage operations in Fairfield do 2.5 times the revenue that the National Golf Foundation study we referred to earlier states. Based on the financial information presented to you, our strong relationship with Kemper Sports, the increased revenues and rents make managing 2 contracts worthwhile. If you have a Legends at your golf course, the 2-operator model is the best option for the city. Based on our 29-year successful partnership, we feel that it is not only equitable, but reasonable to be awarded a 2-year extension to recoup our losses from the pandemic. For a variety of reasons, the end of the contracts has crept up on everyone. We don't feel that the amount of time left, the contract sunsets in December, is sufficient or equitable to Kemper, to SRI, or the city to make the best decision for all concerned. Thank you.
Any comments thus far, colleagues?
Questions?
Before I open public hearing for...
Are there more speakers? That was public comments, right?
Okay.
Are there more speakers?
I have one speaker, Carol Hummel.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. Okay, go ahead, please.
Carol, you can speak here. Yeah.
You know me, I'm Carol Hummel. I'm a golfer. I'm a member of the Women's Club at Rancho Solano. I'm the chair of the Golf Advisory Board. But tonight I am here talking just for my personal opinion. And with all due respect to Dan and George, who I have a great working relationship with Dan, as I do with Jeff Perry, I'm here to ask the council to approve putting the golf service provider contracts out for bid to the marketplace tonight. The last time the contracts were put out to bid was in fall of 2001, and the current contracts were issued in January 2002 and renewed each term since then and extended through COVID. That's 21 years before the staff has seen what is competitive in the market. The duty of the City Council and the staff is to provide the best service provider at the best price to get the value for the stakeholder or taxpayer. If staff does not have competitive market comparisons with comparable providers, they are not able to provide the best offer for the City Council and the city to consider. Even if everyone, including me, wishes to keep the current providers, this allows our staff to have providers sharpen their pencils and provide what competitors may be offering that we are not seeing and have not seen for 21 years. You all know I'm in the wholesale industry. I work with restaurants, I work with major department stores. I work with Walmart, Target, Costco, Macy's, Williams-Sonoma, and others. Many large contracts are awarded for a period of years, and when those contracts are up, the retailer puts out a request for bids from qualified providers. In this way, they ensure that they are current and provide the best product possible in a competitive environment. This is considered a best business practice. We should do exactly the same with the golf courses because it is a business. Each and every time the contracts are up for renewal, a competitive bid should be put out to the qualified providers to best serve the taxpayers. now that the golf courses are self-sustaining with the bonds being paid down next summer. This seems less urgent, but in today's environment, it is in fact critical that staff has the most current competitive market information available, and I would say that 2001 is not current. To not provide your staff with the tools to negotiate the best contract is not a best practice. Please vote tonight to put the contract out for bid to get a current 2022 competitive market information for the staff to perform their best job, which I know they can do. Once staff receives the bids, they will be able to share with the Golf Advisory Board and then the council. 21 years is a really long time to have not reached out to the market in this industry. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other speakers?
No, there are not.
Okay, bring it back for council discussion then, please. Any comments, colleagues?
Sure, I'll start off. So I've spent quite a bit of time researching this. I've met with Dan and George. I'm looking at option 3. I'd like to see one voice. I'd like to see, market comparison was a good statement, but I'd like to see this go out to bid and just have one operator and see what those numbers look like, because I've never seen the numbers. I don't know what if we put out an RFP, RFQ. I'd like to see what that looks like, and I'm leaning towards option 3.
Any other comments, colleagues? Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. Dan and George, I've kept this when we met, and I guess I have a question. You talk about the risk factors that increase for the city, right? And it's my understanding, and probably staff will have to chime in, we're not going to go into the restaurant business. We're going to offer a building. And I see you kind of shake your head, and this is what I'm kind of looking for guidance. In RFP, I'll give you a place to come and do your business. And all facility repairs and maintenance, food and beverage inventory. We're not going into the restaurant business. We're just offering a building. Is that correct?
That would be correct if that was the option council chose.
So, good, Christina's going to jump up. So, explain the fee-for-service operation to me, please.
Okay, so first I want to just clarify that our current structure, our current model is more of I'll use the term more of a professional service agreement. Management operation is what we have with Kemper Sports. And what is currently as the main contract title, whatever with SRI, is more of a lease agreement right now. So there are several options if you go out with a single provider, how you would structure the whole operation and even the fees. I mean, within our current structure and both separate contracts, it's not just one singular percentage. There's different dynamics that come into play. In the original contract with SRI, it's 10% for the restaurant side of it, a different percent for banquets, so we can model it however we want when we go out, and or if we keep the current providers and want to modify, it's really an opportunity in general to take a step back and say what is the best, what does the council feel is the best for the community, for the overall experience. We can address that in multiple ways, and these are just 4 that we're presenting.
Okay, not to put staff, I wouldn't put you on the spot. So I listened to Dan and George, and then I listened to Carol, and best business practice. I think we can all agree, it's been 21 years. I want to see some numbers. I don't know what they're going to offer, and I find it curious, and again, I'm not throwing Kemper under the bus, but Kemper's not up here, right? Talking about what they want to see. I understand, and I have to be very careful here, one does golf, which is completely different than food and beverage. But I would like to see, and I'm with Scott, I would like to see a hard bid number we don't have to go any which way, correct?
That's correct.
I'd like to see a number. Then I would like, once that number comes in, then you can break it down probably into a language then we can understand if you're going to break out a cost for weddings, banquets, whatever it is. Because I understand you've come from a place, a city much larger than Fairfield. Have you done this model before?
So I would say that the typical model of municipals is that you have a single operator, but this is a little bit unique here too, as was presented with, what has been built over time. But I think it really comes from a philosophy of, do we look at them as somewhat separate but working interconnected? As I would say that's how we are operating right now. Or are we looking at, we want to have the golf as the primary, the restaurant part of it is supporting directly, part of that management is supporting the golf first, and then whatever comes in the evening that becomes secondary? Or there's the model of, it's a restaurant that we have some performance measures that they will support some of the golf, but they're really more independent as that restaurant. You kind of have the same option, but it does have a different dynamic in how it's operated. And I don't know if that confused things more or trying to clarify.
No, I follow. All right. Thank you so much.
So Chuck,
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, what exactly are you asking for?
I guess to put it bluntly, I'm looking to put it out for an RFP because I'd like to see some numbers.
Sure.
We have, I think, and obviously when we say Paradise Valley, we think legends and heroes and we think golf. Do other people value that as much as I do? And I wouldn't know that until all of a sudden people said, yeah, we're really interested in this, and here's what we're either willing to pay you or what we'll work for. Does that make sense?
Councilman Moy, please.
Mr. Mayor, looking at the graph that they presented and thinking about when the city called, when one of the restaurants was failing, we went to them and we said, help us, and they did. And now they're coming to us and saying, we, like all of you, are just coming through a pandemic. And I know the restaurants all over Fairfield were impacted and we lost some. And my question is, all of us during the pandemic would say, what can we do to help the businesses? And we did things, there were some loans and stuff. And yet we have a business here who grew like this until the pandemic, then it dropped off. And, they say 75% of what they bring in is not golf related. And I believe that because I've never picked up a golf club and I go to eat there. And I know others that do as well. What I'm saying is, it seems like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth if we won't give a business that we've relied on, that we asked to do some things for us, and now we don't want to help them just to recoup over 2 years, just 2 years they're asking for, what they lost during COVID. It makes no sense to me. Either we're going to be partners with folks, and I totally get going out to bid. I understand what that's about. I think we should do that for home and services. But, here, I think that we need to be good partners, and that's by extending it for 2 years for both Kemper and them, and give them a chance to recoup, and then at that time we can look at it and maybe they're sick of us, who knows. But I'm not asking for a long time, but 2 years. We shouldn't kick people to the curb after they've been with us and been loyal to us. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Dan and George, for your presentation. Thank you, Carol. I think the situation with COVID was rough with everybody. There's no doubt about it. And I know that it, with 33%, you said, of the restaurants closed, right? I mean, I agree. I mean, putting out to bid, that's kind of what we do, right? But I would kind of almost like to offer a compromise here, right? And I don't know if this is going to, I know there's strong feelings about this either way, and who knows, but if we did an extension just for 1 year, okay, and then as that year goes on, Mr. City Manager, we could look at it and see what kind of metrics are being met, or, how things are going. I know 2 years is what you want, but I'm just looking at some type of compromise, if that's going to go with the council. If not, of course, I'll go with, the majority of the council. But I would think that would be reasonable, at least for now, because, I know businesses do need to recoup. I've been a partner for many, many years. So that's kind of what I'm throwing out there. I'm not sure if anybody else agrees with me or not, but I'll put it out there.
Sounds like a reasonable compromise to me, but I have some concerns, though, and let me just give you one example, gentlemen. And I really appreciate your sitting down with each of us and talking about where you were, where you are, and where you'd like to be. But something that comes to mind is a frequent criticism about not having a beverage cart available. Not having a beverage cart available when people are playing golf. And I understand how.
Yeah, everything, we are still facing all kind of staffing issues.
Yeah, I took them over here, but use the microphone so people at home can hear you.
Conversation. To this day, we're still struggling with staff and filling it up. What we did to survive was we took what we had and we put out everything that we could to cover all of the bases. We wear a lot of different hats at the golf course. The beverage cart, we realize, is an important part of what we're doing, and it's been spotty through the pandemic. And some people understood, some people don't understand. We had to close our bar down at one point. Some people don't understand that because there was no service at the bar. We didn't have the staff to fill it. So somebody sits at the bar, they don't get any service, they get upset. So we put up some sign that says, please order at the counter if you'd like to sit at the bar. We made a lot of different concessions and adapted to what we needed to do to survive. And we're excited about the fact we made it through. We did absorb quite a few losses, and we're asking for the 2 years simply because it makes sense. We stood up tall. We fulfilled the obligations we could fulfill. We communicated with the pro shop on a daily basis. If the cart was somebody was late to get to the cart, if the cart girl had to come in for an appointment, or somebody didn't show up for work, we would communicate with Kemper, Daryl, and Jeff, and we would say, hey, today we're struggling. We don't have anybody to be on the cart today. So please tell the golfers when they come through the pro shop to stock up before they go out, because the cart's not out there. So, Harry, that's, we're trying to do the best we can, but if you don't have a person there.
They sound like excuses, they're reasons. We can call them what they want. Staffing has been an amazing issue, and people not showing up. It's very interesting. You'll have an interview, and you'll supposed to have an interview with 6 people confirming that they're coming in. And maybe one person shows up. And so it's really hard to fill those staffing positions. And quite frankly, the first thing that will suffer is the golf cart. There's no question about it, because we have to keep the facility open. So, but we hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, and Harry, sometimes we'll get busy inside, and who do we ask to come in is the cart driver. Could you come in for 10 or 15 minutes while we have a little rush going on? So, we were trying to adapt and survive, throughout the difficult
And we
time.
can say that it's getting better now. We have more staff now, and people are coming back to work. And there is no question we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. But we don't know, what's going to happen with the pandemic. We don't know, what variants are going to happen and how many people are going to get COVID and what the rules and regulations are going to be for staff coming in. But it's a reality in our lives now. And, we're doing the best we can to try to operate a business in this environment. We do appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let me just clarify one point with you. I fully understand the difficulty in hiring employees. They may go through the interview process, they'll receive the job offer, but they don't show up.
Sometimes.
And I'm hearing it all across Fairfield, and not just California either.
Yes.
It's a major, major concern.
Well, the employee left for a long time because the unemployment benefits were so inviting. And then all of a sudden, what's happened, I think, is that they get in the mindset of, you know what, I'm going to live my life differently. And so they come in and go, I don't want to work for $15 an hour, I'm going to go do something else. So it's been interesting, the evolution of the employee is...
Every day is different.
Yeah,
Every day is different.
crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Harry.
Councilman Tim, please.
Thank you. Another option just came to mind because we're still kind of arguing over, we got to go single vendor or double vendor. The vice mayor brought up, well, we can give them a year and they want 2 years. Why don't we do two things? Is send it out for an RFP on a double vendor, send it out for an RFP on a single vendor. I want to see current numbers. These are taxpayer dollars. And the money comes to the city. And I think that would be, is that an option that you would consider?
So we did something similar recently with the most recent RFQ that went out was for the facility assessment and a park master plan. And the way we put that out on the street, we said you may respond to both, or you can respond to either or, with a preference of finding one vendor with the thought of scale of economy there in that example. So yes, we can provide the RFQ package that would state this is part of the operation, this is the other, the golf and the restaurant, and anybody can bid on either or both.
Yeah, because that way then, whenever it comes back, then we can sit up here and say, these are the numbers, these are the bids. I don't doubt your loyalty. I know that you've stood up. You have a fine organization. But on the other hand, though, too, I think we all represent everybody in Fairfield. So I would say if my colleagues would go along with it, let's add option 5 and put out the bifurcated RFPs.
Reactions? Councilman Rotani, please.
Thank you. Approximately how long would such a process take on Councilman Tim's, what I think is a good idea? What does the time frame look like for that?
So it really varies. I mean, putting together the RFP package, we could probably get something on the street, and then it really is how long we want to keep it on the street to see what kind of response we get. So I think that's kind of a little bit of the volatile timeline to say explicitly, because if we don't have any responders if we were to open it, let's say for only 3 weeks, and we have one responder, where if we would have done 5 weeks, we may have, because it is a pretty comprehensive package that they need to put together, especially with the operation with 2 golf courses. That's the other thing is different here in Fairfield, that we're going out with an RFQ. It's not a single municipal golf course. So we have 2 dynamic golf courses with 2 dynamic restaurant and banquet. So for the responders to come in with that, I would say we would probably look at least 4 months. And then by the time we go through interviews and everything, we had tried to time it out where we would be pretty close to that December deadline for being prepared to enter into new contracts in January. But if we needed to extend just for the sake of completing the process, we would be going to each of the individual vendor providers now and say, through the process, we're needing another 3 months, and maybe negotiate a month to month or whatever. So it is a little bit volatile, but we feel if there were action tonight, that we should be able to have a definitive contract before the end of the year.
So not needing to rush and taking all factors into consideration, I'm thinking about a hybrid between Councilman Tim's proposal and the Vice Mayor's proposal, so that we can do this, fairly complex RFQ process, and at the same time acknowledge the partnership that we've had and the realities of the pandemic. And 29 years does matter, in my opinion. a 29-year relationship matters. And so I'm thinking what my colleagues would think about kind of the hybrid of doing the RFQ process like Councilman Tim recommended, and doing that over the course of the next year so that we can provide the one-year extension to provide an opportunity to recoup the losses that were sustained and substantiated during the pandemic time. And that way, I think maybe we can, because I agree with my colleagues, I agree with Carol, obviously, and everyone up here. We work for the people. This is a free market economy, period. So competition matters. And so we have to know what the current numbers are. But at the same time, I think if we have this hybrid kind of solution, then no one gets exactly what they want. Everybody gets a little bit of what they want, which is kind of the art of negotiation. Right, Mr. Lim? Right. So
If I may add too, as far as the timing, one of the things that I would recommend is that if we're transitioning to new providers, that we have that be at the end of a calendar year. Changing operators in June or July, which is the height season of golf, is not the best to change operators. So there is some nuance with the timing of when we would contract with somebody new. We need to, specifically with the golf operation, less important with the restaurant side of it, but that is something definitely we need to consider with the timing.
And I agree with that, but what I'm most concerned with is that we get this right. These are the crown jewels of this community. And we really need to know what we are doing and have adequate information before us to make the right decisions. Because this is a big change. This is a big change over almost 30 years. So I don't know, I would be interested to see what my colleagues have to say about maybe a hybrid between the vice mayor and Councilman Tim, so that we can have our RFQ process, have plenty of time to do that, provide the time to recoup some of the losses over the pandemic, and to extend some goodwill to folks who have extended goodwill to us over the years.
Councilman Bertani, thank you very much. Councilman Moy, please.
Thank you. So I think the suggestions of three of my colleagues make sense. Instead of doing it just for a year, since you're talking about December is the end of the actual year is the best time, maybe extend it all the way till the next December. So it'll be a year and a half. So that is between what I
It would be
and
an
the vice-
extension 1 year. We're just getting started with the RFQ would be part, their contracts don't expire until December.
Right.
So
okay,
we're
it
trying to
would
be ahead of it to have it transition in December, January.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, then that makes sense.
And then I'll just also, whatever is the final decision, if it is extending, then we'll want direction if we're continuing at the reduced rate, because in 2020, we did reduce their revenue threshold of what they need to pay the city in response to the pandemic. So we would need to clarify all of that moving forward. So they had a reduced percentage of revenue that they're paying the city, because recognizing that, obviously, the decrease in overall revenue.
That back, or do we need to do that right now?
We could bring that.
Since it doesn't end till the end of the year?
Yeah, depending on the direction from council, we would have plenty of time by the end of the year to bring that back and deny any changes that would be suggested in terms of whether or not it's still the reduced rate for the extension, because the extension would have to come before council still.
Okay.
And any other items that would be pertinent that you would want to see in those for that extension.
All right, so I'll let one of my colleagues make such a, Pam or the vice mayor, go ahead and do that so we can move forward.
Councilman Tonneson, please.
So if, it sounds like we're going a different direction than was requested. So if we do this, how do we shore up some of the, there's one person working with 15 or 20 people in line. How do we tighten up some of the stuff that's going on where they've been affected? I know they've been affected by the pandemic, but there's some stuff we need to shore up there at the restaurant itself if we're going to give them some extra time.
Well, I would think, Mr. City Manager, I think that would be metrics that are built in there, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what Christina was trying to say, is that with a one-year extension, if there was any changes then that you would want to see in terms of those performance metrics, we could build that in, and then when we bring that lease extension back, you could see what those items are. So, for example, if there's, service timelines or some of those types of metrics, we can build those into an extension for the 1 year while we're also going out for the RFP.
And are we still we're talking about getting an RFP or RFQ for a single operator and a dual operator, and then giving them some time?
That sounds reasonable. Yeah. Okay. Councilman Tim, please.
Thank you. I don't mean to be obstinate, but I just, but I'm going to be, I guess. So we have 6 months. I understand you want a need for time, but if we keep kicking the can down the road, nothing's going to change. But what will change now are people's numbers, because if on a dual operator, you know what your numbers are today. Do you know what your numbers are going to be in 18 months? Kemper Golf, they know what their numbers are today. Again, this comes back, and I don't run a restaurant. I wouldn't know how to run a restaurant, and you do a good job based on what you have. But I would advocate for a single and a double, RFPs or RFQs, but have this done by December, and not, if I understand you guys correctly, we're talking now December of '23. Yes. My position is 22, but we can certainly vote on it, and thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I would say I would like to go with the direction that Councilwoman Bertani mentioned. And I don't know if I need a motion for that, or I'll make a motion for that.
So, let me be clear. We all are unanimous on going out to RFP, RFQ. We're unanimous on that.
Yeah.
So that's the direction that we're going. It's a matter of time. So something has changed tonight. And what has changed is that this council is unanimous on going out to RFP. What is the right term? Is it RFP or RFQ?
Qualification.
You have.
Okay, RFQ.
Yeah.
Let's go with RFQ.
If you say RFP, RFQ, we know what you mean.
Okay, so I don't want to just keep saying them both. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that, so the council looks like it's unanimous on going out to RFQ for a single and a double operator to get the numbers that we need. That's going to happen. That change happened tonight. It's just a matter of time. Is it going to be in December of 2022 or December of 2023?
Right.
Is that where we are right now?
But what
Critical question, yes.
And my motion was December of 2023.
23.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Which?
So just if I could clarify, just so we're clear on what I think the motion is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vice Mayor. I believe the motion was to go out with an RFP, RFQ, and negotiate a one-year extension so that if there is a change based on the RFP, RFQ process, that change would commence at the termination of the one-year extension of a lease in December of 2023.
Correct.
But there's going to be a change in this council in 2022.
So,
Okay, whatever.
And to confirm, it's for both single operator and dual operator.
Correct. Yes. And it would be helpful, Mr. Mayor, if maybe we could have, I don't know if it's up to you, but maybe a roll call, since I think there might be disagreement on this one, just so we're clear if we know if that motion carries.
And is it procedurally correct for me to ask a question here? So what happens if we say that we're not going to extend the contract and we're going to go out for bid?
I'll second that.
You'll second it, exactly. But my concern is, what happens during the time period? What if we don't have the process, the RFP, RFQ process completed? What happens then to our golf courses?
Well, we would assume that we would have extension until they are.
And they're shaking their heads, who knows? I don't know what that means, but my...
There would be no foreseeable reason why we wouldn't have it completed by December.
And Pam, just, Kemper operates hundreds of courses, and like 99% of them are single operators.
Yeah.
Or more.
That's right.
And
It's a
I just want to
fee-for-service
say,
operation.
whatever, if we're doing the dual, it doesn't preclude either of them or anybody, any other provider to come to us so that we do see the comparatives.
And the only thing that I would like to add to the conversation, and this is protection for the city, try to imagine the end of the RFP process ending in December or January. Think of the transition that's not going to take place. We're gone. There's no way the RFP process is going to be done in time for an effective transition with a new operator. If we walk out the door, and a lot of the information we have is all proprietary, we would need to make sure we work something out with the city as far as how that's going to work. There are so many things that go along in this transition that would go, I guarantee you, if you go out to bid now and you want a new operator in January 1st of '23, the transition will be a nightmare. The golf course will go completely sideways.
And you may be able to accomplish that. That is certainly, things like that happen. The thing that, by allowing for a one-year extension with the bid to happen, the RFP or RFQ to go out, the thing that's the real benefit is education as to what the operators are actually going to be bidding for. We've talked about fee-for-service, we've talked about the entrepreneurial model, and you mentioned that Kemper operates, 900 golf courses nationwide or 400 or whatever as a single operator. How many of them do they operate the restaurant on an entrepreneurial basis? Zero.
But they operate a restaurant.
Well, they do it, again, the fee-for-service, I think we've talked this to death, but the fee-for-service puts the city in the restaurant business. You pay for every dime of expense that goes along with that.
And I'm not, I'm definitely trying not to argue, but
That's fine. No, we understand. We understand.
Mr. Mayor.
Final comments, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right, I think we've discussed this enough. I know there's a second on the floor, but look, I respect everybody's opinion up here, everybody, and I understand their strong feelings. It's okay, we've done this before, and we don't always agree. And I think once this is over, okay, then we'll move on. So I think, to me, there's a motion, there's a second. And if we have to do a roll call, we should do it now.
And Rick, you made the motion?
I'm going to ask for the motion to be repeated, please.
Yes.
Okay. The motion was to put it out to an RFP or RFQ with a one-year extension, right? And Chuck, right, single operator and dual operator, so we can look at the numbers. And that's till December 2023 would the extension be. That's my motion.
Okay.
I'm going to ask one more question. So even though we are going to have a new council, the new council cannot override what we're doing here, right? It's meaning that even if we have a new council, we've already voted and decided that in a year, we're going to go out to RFP, RFQ for single, double provider, and then in a year, with a year extension to give us the time to digest the information, but that's going to happen. David Lim is saying,
No, that's not technically true. So what you're doing tonight is you're providing direction to council. To staff, excuse me. There's no resolution, there's no ordinance, you're merely providing direction. So actually, the two people that matter most are you 7 members of the council providing direction to your Park and Rec director. As long as she says she has an understanding of what it is that you're trying to give her direction on. As soon as she says, I understand enough to put forward what you're telling me to do, then she will go do that in working with the city manager. They still need to come back with some sort of contract, extension, RFQ, whatever you tell her to do, staff will still need to bring it back to you for final approval. So nothing you say today is locked in stone, because ultimately, whenever they bring it back, whoever the 7 people are sitting here, whether if it's all 7 of you next week or 7 different people in 5 months, those people will get to decide, do we approve it or not approve it. So making a motion and second is helpful tonight if it helps the Park and Rec director understand the direction that you're giving her. But if each of you just wanted to say what your direction was, and if she says, okay, I get it, I understand where you're coming from. I don't think that's what she's going to say. I like the motion and second, but it could be very informal. You know, if you all agree by consensus, that's fine. I haven't said anything because I think the motion and second gives her clear direction. I see you're nodding her head. But what you do today is not binding in any way, shape, or form, other than it gives your staff
Got it.
direction on how to proceed.
Roll call, please. We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Okay.
I love
We'll
that
just start
fight.
this way.
Okay, Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
No.
Councilmember Tonneson?
No.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yes. The roll is 5-2.
Five to two.
And let me just make a quick comment. When I was first elected, I was excited because Fairfield had Rancho Solano and the golf course. And I was excited not because I'm a golfer. I've never really played golf. But I was excited because I was assured that the debts to build Rancho Solano would be paid off in 20 years. And I've been encouraged to believe that we want to keep what we have. So I think this action tonight, even though it's a split vote, it's the right choice to do. So thank you. Okay. And we turn now to item number 30, please.
We're on item 29, City Council of the City of Fairfield, fiscal year 2022-23 strategic goals and priorities. And our presenter is our interim city manager, David Gasway.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, recognizing we still have a couple of more items to get to tonight, I will be very brief. As you all know, back in March, we had a council retreat and goal-setting session over the course of 2 days. A very successful meeting and very successful discussions that were had at that time. Since then, staff has worked to put together this goals document that is before you tonight that sets out a few things. It sets out a vision for this city council and this organization, which is Fairfield is a vibrant, safe, clean, affordable, and diverse community with robust commerce, thriving business, and has transitioned from a bedroom community to a destination. It sets a mission, which is to foster a sense of pride in the community, improve the lives of our residents, and deliver dependable, essential services through integrity and professionalism and fiscal responsibility. It identifies 5 values: communication, diversity, inclusion, innovation, transparency, and then sets as your priorities for the coming fiscal year, fiscal year 22-23, priorities of homelessness, quality of life, downtown development, housing, organizational excellence, and community engagement. If you remember, during the 2-day retreat, we talked a couple of times. I was showing a graphic that was kind of a pyramid that showed, goals, objectives, strategies, so on and so forth. The document we've tried to craft very much in that model. We've identified items that are already in process that we're working on that would be continue over, as well as some new items, strategies under the objectives there that would continue that on. So all we're looking for tonight would be for you to approve this goals document, setting these priorities as those for the city council over the next year, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any comments or questions for the city manager? Okay. Do we have any public speakers on this item, Madam Clerk?
No, we do not.
Okay. Council, please go ahead with your comments now, and then we'll take action right away. Any comments?
No, I think we discussed that so much at the
Yeah.
meeting. I think we all know, so, yeah.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Say- Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We turn to item number 31, please. Madam Clerk? Comments?
Item 30.
Yeah.
Resolution 2022-145 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of Fairfield and Shelter Solano, Inc. to support the kitchen build-out completion project at 310 Beck Avenue in Fairfield and authorizing an update to the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And our presenter is Selena Sanchez from the Homeless Services Division, and I believe maybe Don Labar online. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Selena Sanchez, and I'm with the City Manager's Office Homeless Services Division. The item before you this evening is a request to authorize the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Shelter Solano Incorporated to support the kitchen build-out completion project and to authorize an update to the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. As you may recall, in August of 2021, you approved Resolution 2021-195, which authorized $1.5 million in former ARPA funds to support the Fairfield Navigation Center at Shelter Solano. Even though we are no longer using ARPA funds, tonight we are formalizing that action by bringing forth this MOU for your consideration and vote. For these funds, a budget adjustment is required to program the expense for fiscal year 22-23. We wanted to take the opportunity to provide a brief historical background on the project and what these critical funds will be used to support. The emergency shelter facility at 310 Beck Avenue has been historically underutilized and unable to reach its full potential to serve the community. In 2019, Shelter Solano took over as operator and has since then made strides to overcome a myriad of inherited concerns around the campus, including deferred maintenance, previous operator debt, and negative reputation associated with the shelter. To bring the kitchen facility up to its full capacity, Shelter Solano is working on completing the kitchen build-out project, a concept that has been around for years and that was never able to be completed by the previous operator. Initial kitchen estimates from the previous operator fluctuated depending on fundraising and the audience at the time. In the last 3 years, you can see the progress that Shelter Solano has made in raising funds to get the kitchen project completed. The total MOU contract shall not exceed $1 million and will be used to support building construction, kitchen equipment, and dining hall furniture. The MOU will be on a reimbursement basis, and any unused funds will remain with the city. For the remaining unfunded items, Shelter Solano anticipates securing these funds from Solano County to cover those expenses. Currently, there is no commercial kitchen at Shelter Solano. This means participants are being provided pre-made heat and serve meals in shifts. Part of the supportive services at Shelter Solano include the healthy food that the body and mind need to operate at their best. With the completion of this project, Shelter Solano will be able to maximize its impact by serving up to 125 persons simultaneously. The new facility will also be able to operate a culinary arts job skills program to train homeless and low-income persons to help them increase economic mobility, which is one of the foundations for stable housing. To give you an idea of the use of the property specifically for Fairfield, below on the screen is a chart of Shelter Solano enrollments. As you can see, from February 2019 to January 2022, 686 unduplicated persons were referred, of which 407 slept in Fairfield the night before. Of that 686, 145 were referred by the city of Fairfield. In addition to that, you can see the snapshot of April and May to the right as well. Should council choose to adopt Resolution 2022-145, we would enter into an MOU with Shelter Solano to support the kitchen build-out completion project. With these funds, Shelter Solano anticipates construction completion and receiving their temporary occupancy permit at the end of July. Once the kitchen is fully permitted, shelter capacity can expand to 125. And lastly, in the coming months, we will be bringing back recommendations and resources to receive your input on what you would like to see as we fully transition the facility as part of the Regional Navigation Center plan. Thank you for your time and consideration. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, as well as Don, who is on the line, and Brandon Worth from Shelter Solano, and John Ekstrom from Shelter Solano. After any questions and discussions, I would respectfully ask that you entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-145. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Selena, good presentation, of course. So can you explain the funding here with, we approved ARPA for 1.5 million, correct? So now this funding that went into the general fund, is that right? Or maybe you can explain.
Correct, yeah. City Council previously, I believe it was last year sometime,
right.
In effect earmarked 1.5 million of ARPA funding for navigation services. In April of this year, we ended up accepting those funds as revenue loss, as Ashley presented earlier in the budget. And so they're, within the general fund or intergovernmental services fund, I'm just using fancy words, I apologize. There is the 1.5 million, and so this proposal would be 1 million of those 1.5 million that were designated for navigation would go to this kitchen project, which would be a critical component of conversion of the property to a navigation center.
And then if for some reason it costs less than $1 million, and then where would that funding go?
That funding would remain with the city. So it's on a reimbursement basis, so we just wouldn't pay that out. It would be with the city.
Okay.
Councilwoman Moy?
That was a good question, Mr. Vice Mayor. How much money has the city of Fairfield already given toward this project?
Towards this project in particular, I might ask.
Yeah, for the kitchen. Anything? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, hold on a second, I'm pulling that up.
Yep, go back to the budget screen. We've paid out about $364,000 in CDBG funds in one-time funding.
Is that the 397,974?
397, correct, yeah, and I think to date, it's been about 360,000 to date.
Okay, okay.
But I anticipate they'll spend, I anticipate, this is Dawn, by the way, I anticipate they'll spend all 390 or so $1,000 of that.
Okay. And so it looks like other money came from private foundations. I'm wondering where the other cities in the county are jumping in here. Why are we doing the whole $1 million, I guess?
So there is about $300,000 that was set aside by the County of Solano. That money has been probably sitting there for, well, it's been before 2019, when Ron Marlett was the operator. That money's been sitting there because at that time, the money was allocated according to a bed rate. And again, we're all looking to try to get away from those beds, the conditional bed rates. So Shelter Inc., Shelter Solano will be going after those $300,000, which you can see in the budget there as well. They are earmarked to get them to the completion of the kitchen. And other cities have, the city of Vacaville just earmarked their ARPA funds this last week, June 14th. They did earmark ARPA funds, though it wasn't specific to the kitchen completion. It was earmarked for the Regional Navigation Center plan and specifically the Shelter Solano site in Fairfield. So there will be dollars that will go toward operations It's possible, although because they didn't get into the details, it is possible that some of those funds could be used for startup costs or some sort of navigation center type costs. But that, I think, is something that the 2x2 or that regional group would probably work out. So that's a great question, Councilmember Moy. There are other cities that are paying into the operational costs, but at this time, I don't believe there's anything that's specifically been called out for the kitchen other than what has been identified on this screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be fair to the city of Fairfield here. And we want this kitchen done, obviously. But will it even out? I guess that's my question. So if there's so much funds that are needed for the navigation center, and I don't see why it's much different because, as you said earlier, it's kind of a name change. I mean, you're going to have some permanent things in there, but I don't understand the cost there is what I'm saying. So how does it even out for us? You know, if we're forking over $1 million, how is that fair to Fairfield? I just want you guys to tell me it is.
I think it would be a fair ask, and I think that's a legitimate question. I think what would be a fair ask is for that question to be taken to the 2x2 and the regional group, because that is a $1 million commitment that is being made by the city of Fairfield for part of a regional navigation center plan.
Right.
So whether that's for year one, whether it's year two, et cetera, I think, you know, Vice Mayor Vaccaro and Councilmember Panduro could take that, you know, recommendation or somehow, you know, leverage that. And again, you know, this obviously isn't my call, but I think that would be a fair leveraging of dollars on a countywide level, since all of the other jurisdictions are looking at sharing in the cost of annual operations and startup costs for a regional navigation center plan.
Right.
I think that is something that the city of Fairfield should leverage.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Councilwoman Pandora, if you want to jump in too. I think, Don, great point. I think that we do need to bring that up at the 2x2, not only with the other cities, but the county. I mean, this is going to be a critical piece in this whole, you know, in the restructuring of Capilano, how we're going to serve our homelessness in our homeless issue in this county. So yeah, we like I said earlier, we're still doing in the restructuring phase, but yeah, we definitely do need to bring that up, and we'll continue to bring that up. And I think that we've talked about that at the meetings, how, you know, the whole idea of a regional outlook on this is so we all work together.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're right, and we should not be, you know, the ones, we are doing more, no doubt about it, which, you know, I'm okay with right now to a certain extent because we are kind of taking the lead, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But I think in the long run, things do need to even out. We need to ask Vacaville, Vallejo, the two biggest cities besides us.
Right.
Actually, well, Vallejo's the biggest city
Vallejo's
besides us.
bigger than us.
So yeah, I think those are discussions, and Councilmember Pandora, I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
I will. So I just wanted to clarify also that I know that earlier in the budget presentation, there was a little picture and it has the 1.5 towards the navigation center, so that the public knows that this is not additional money. This is just being allocated or named differently. I don't know what the appropriate wording would be for that, but
Yeah, this is appropriating 1 million of that
To
1.5
the
million
kitchen.
specific to the kitchen project.
correct. So just that we are clear on that.
I'm very
but just
clear.
for the public's understanding too,
Mhm.
because we did talk about it on here, and then
Yes.
we're talking about it here, and it's being called a little bit different. So, and then also I agree with Rick with regards to Councilmember Vaccaro with regards to bringing it back to the 2x2, like I initially had said, that because we have taken the lead on this and we are given a significant amount of money and resources to this regional 2x2, that I think it is our prerogative to make sure that we are ensuring that other cities are also giving equal or the same amount of resources and time to this project or to this restructuring of Capilano. And I think it is upon us to be able to voice that and ask for, expectations, and, with regards to the money too, just having being able to show a clear process of how these funds are being used and where that money is coming from, or going to, I should say, with regards to the construction of the kitchen.
Well, should we do that first? Should we go and tell them first at the next meeting? Look, we're thinking about this, but you guys need to throw in here.
You
You
know,
think?
I know I don't, and here's why. I think that I'm okay with us taking the lead on this, right? Because we need to get that kitchen built, okay? And I think that, and we are the county seat, and I know that, well, let me just finish. I mean, I just think that we need to get this done now. And then, you know, we're trusted to take this back and to talk to the other city and to the county about the funding. So I mean, I want to move forward with it. I mean,
Okay.
and you know, people might not disagree, might disagree.
No, I agree if you guys think you can get her done,
I think we definitely work with the other cities.
to have them chip in the same amount.
Well, I don't know about the same amount, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, we've got to be equal.
Well, but remember though, not all cities have equal population either, so you got to remember that.
No, I'm
too.
not talking, I'm talking about 3 big cities.
Okay, well, that's something we will have that discussion, so.
All right. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve? Been moved by Councilman Tim. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Councilwoman Panduro. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We return now to, we didn't do public comments. Were there any public comments on this item?
No.
No, I didn't think so. Okay, we turn to our last item, please.
Item 31, public hearings. Public hearing and resolution 2022-146 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield adopting updated nexus studies for the citywide AB 1600 traffic impact fee and for the Northeast area development fees. And our presenter is Planning Manager Dave Feinstein.
Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, I'm Dave Feinstein, City's Planning Division Manager. So for your final item tonight, staff will be asking you to hold a public hearing, and following the public hearing, to approve 2 studies that will be used by the city to update and to establish new impact fees that we charge on new development. As I think you're all aware, the city's general plan has a policy that directs that new development pays its own way. And so the studies before you tonight are key inputs to helping make sure that new development does pay its own way. So if you look at the title there, it says Nexus Study. At its heart, the word nexus means connection. And under state law, AB 1600, the city is allowed to charge new development for the impacts that it causes to the city if we show the connection between the need for new infrastructure, new facilities, things like that, if we show the connection between the need and the demand that's created by new development. So the 2 studies that are before you tonight lay out that case. It shows the nexus between our forecast for new development and a whole range of facilities that the city wants to see constructed to serve that new development. So what kinds of impacts are we talking about? What kinds of fees are we talking about with these studies? So there are 6 different categories of fees that are covered by these studies. The big one, covering about $270 million, are for new roadway improvements throughout the city. And then within a particular part of the city, our northeast area, in addition to roadways, one of the studies covers the needs for new linear parks, gateways, and other capital improvements to benefit the northeast area, new sewer infrastructure, new storm drainage infrastructure, and open space preservation. So again, 2 studies that you're looking at tonight cover 2 different geographies. So the first study is for our northeast area that covers that whole range of impact fees. And so again, the northeast area, it's that purple area up at the far end of the city, essentially all the new development areas east of Claybank Road. And if you can squint your eyes and you look at that, you can see essentially a lot of brown areas. That's essentially largely undeveloped areas. And in our northeast area, relative to the rest of the city, it's not nearly as rich in terms of infrastructure. So there's a lot of infrastructure and improvements that need to be funded for that area. And so we have a whole separate study, our Northeast Impact Fee study that you're looking at tonight, to help figure out how do we fund all that infrastructure. The other study before you is for the rest of the city, and particularly for new roadways. The rest of the city largely has the kinds of improvements that our Northeast area study is trying to fund, but what it does have is a substantial need for new roadway improvements, widening of certain roads, interchange improvements over in the Cordelia area, etc. And again, in total, about $270 million we're looking to raise between our Northeast study and our citywide, or our rest of the city study, specifically for roadways. Okay, if you've looked at the studies, a lot of math, a lot of tables, a lot of complexity to those studies. I do want to at least briefly hit the methodology without getting into a lot of the gory math or anything in the tables in those studies. But the first part,
Excuse me, David.
yeah.
Before you start, I just wanted to check with the city attorney. I know that we've received a couple of letters, and I'm not sure if my colleagues are aware of these letters. Sorry about my voice. But there are two very large builders who oppose this and want this pulled for now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like the city attorney to tell us what we should be doing right now. I mean, we need to know, because we're looking at lawsuits, right?
I know.
Potentially?
Well, the city's always potentially looking at a lawsuit.
Oh, I know that.
I mean, anyone could sue you for anything. But if you're asking, is there a potential lawsuit pending on this matter, I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
Any more than there would be on any other matter before this council. I think what Councilmember Moy, you're referencing is there was a letter that came in at 5:05 p.m. addressed to city council members.
Yes.
City email address is dated June 21st, 2002, from the law firm of Chartres Freeze LLP,
Right.
by an attorney named Paul Skip Spalding. And it's a pretty long letter. And I've been with the council since about 5:30, so I will admit I've had a very brief review of it. It does ask in the first paragraph that the letter be submitted as comments related to this agenda item. Now, in terms of any public comment, it's just like any other public comment. If the council has had a chance to look at it, they are free to consider it in reviewing this. They are free to disregard it. Any public comment, you have a duty to look at it, listen to it. If you haven't had a chance to read it because it came in at 5:05, I think that's good grounds to say, I didn't have time to look at this. I've acknowledged it as a public comment, but it's too late in the game for me to consider it. You could also say, I want to review it, because as the policymakers, you can say, I want to take the time to review it and understand it and take appropriate action. But it's no more important, no less important than any public comment that any member of the public might come in and make a comment about.
Thank you. I would like to review it. I haven't read it, and I think it's important that we get that. It did come before our meeting started.
That's obviously, Councilwoman, that's your prerogative, and you could make the appropriate motion
Well,
at the...
if
at the-
others don't,
Yeah, you can make whatever
I'm
motion
holding
you
it to
deem is
that.
appropriate at any time. You are the policy maker, so if you want to make a motion, then you can. You could wait for staff to finish their report and then make the motion. It's completely up to you.
No, I don't, I'm fine. It's up to them whether they want to read it or not. They did ask for us to pull this or not do this, and they gave reasons. Yes, that's what I saw, just cursory look at it. I'm not going to talk.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor? Go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, is there anybody here from that attorney firm or representing that builder? So this has been on the agenda for how long? And here, I don't mean to be impatient, but you can't send me something at 5:15 when we went into closed session at what, 5:30?
Right.
I now pull it up, it's 11 pages, and they're stating their objection to probably what you're going to tell us. So I'd rather you tell me what you're going to tell us, and then if there's any public comment or if somebody wants to read that letter out loud, that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but for crying out loud, I mean, this has been agendized now, and this is a big, big issue. This isn't a surprise to anybody, right?
It's been a surprise to some of the people I've spoken with, yes.
Well,
Yeah, and if I could just say, did this not, this developer who is Albert Sino, it's Discovery Builders, DBI, did they not send in something earlier, Mr. City Manager, like last week or a couple days ago?
Yeah, a couple.
And we haven't seen that.
Yeah, sometime around the beginning of June, they'd sent a letter to city staff referring to
Did you see that?
concerns that they had raised on the nexus analysis. We responded back to them with a letter through our consultants, EPS, that have assisted us on drafting the nexus analysis. We also received a letter today, and I'm realizing you were not on that email from Cannon Partners, which is an industrial developer in the Northeast area.
I didn't see that.
So the two letters received today, both this afternoon, I think to Councilmember Tim's point, both say basically the same thing. We disagree with this, and we would ask that you not adopt this tonight. And so, cutting somewhat to the chase, I want to identify for you one of the reasons that this has come to you tonight, as opposed to taking a longer time frame in order to, go back and forth with the development community on this. By the way, I believe we also received one letter from a McKinley Partners that was in support of this. Verbally, the other large developer, Lewis Communities, I believe was going to send a letter. I don't know if they sent that directly to you. I didn't see any. I didn't see. So beginning July 1, a new law goes into effect in the state of California, Assembly Bill 602. It was adopted last year. I think technically it became law on January 1 of this year, but goes into effect on July 1. What AB 602 requires is a modification to the way that nexus analysis is required to be the methodologies that go into those nexus analysis in the state of California. That is the methodology that would be required under AB 602 is not the methodology that we've used in 2013, the last time we did the substantial update to the fees, nor in the methodology that's before you tonight, which staff, along with our consultants, have been working on for the better part of, if not more than a year. And so the effort to bring this forward tonight has been ongoing for some time. We provided original drafts of the nexus analysis to the development community. We had a series of meetings, 7 or 8 meetings with developers, starting back in early April. So once we realized we were going to have a time crunch because of the change in law, we started engaging with the development community at that time, over 2 months ago, to start providing them information, getting feedback. And so that's the sort of the time critical is the change in state law. If this nexus analysis does not go forward tonight, it would require us under this new law to go back and modify the methodology. And as with anything that rolls down from the state of California, where it's a new law, it is not entirely clear exactly what the methodology would be required, what that methodology would be required in order to comply with the new law. And the new law basically says that for any residential development impact fees must take into account unit sizes. And that's not something that currently is a standard, and that gets very complex then when you have that in relationship with transportation impacts, because unit size does not necessarily equate to the impacts on the transportation system. So that's a very long-winded answer, probably more than you wanted, but that's a little bit of background there.
And just one other question, Mr. City Manager. I know everybody's tired. I am too. You and I talked about that when you are our consultant, sent a letter back, or our city attorney, whoever did, back to DBI, that there were some things in there that we agreed with them about. What was that?
Yeah, there was a couple of items, and if I'm not mistaken, I could ask one of the consultants to come up, or maybe Dave has the answer. But I believe there was just some cost items. So, when you do the overall Nexus study, you basically do a big list of all the projects needed in order to support all of the development.
Right.
And there was a couple of minor items. I think there was one intersection, a traffic signal that had already been half completed that they pointed out in there. There was some issues, or something that they pointed out with some of our ITS, which is our traffic management systems, and some of those costs. So again, some very technical stuff. There was other things related to the methodology that we didn't agree with them on, and ultimately Nexus has to be reasonable, and so the methodology that we're proposing is reasonable in terms of the amount of development that we project happening in the community.
Thank you so much for your patience.
And I'm sorry, if I could, just to further clarify, Councilmember Moy, your initial request to me, I do want to make sure, just for the record, since we're on video, the email that we're talking about that has the 11-page letter from DBI, from the attorney, Mr. Spalding, was sent at 5:05 p.m. It was addressed, I'm looking at the distribution list, it was addressed to both the city clerk, the city manager, the city attorney, and also all 7 members of the city council. I printed a copy of it, and what I'll do is I'll place it out in the foyer where public records or comments can be listed in case any member of the public wants to review it, or if any member of the city council doesn't have access to their email and would like to review it, you can. But I will also note it is 9:04 p.m., and the council, having received this at 5:05, had time to read and consider it just like you would any other public comment. And obviously, you all know as council members, if you desire more time to review, you can always ask your colleagues for additional time to review it before rendering a decision. But you have, and I'm seeing nodding of heads, so everyone has had a chance to at least recognize that it came into your email and you have access to it, correct? Okay, I'll place this out in the foyer just so any member of the public wanting to comment or review it can do so. Thanks.
And Tim, please.
Yeah, and for David Gassaway, if we adopt this Nexus tonight, is this still subject to change through negotiations, through like DDAs and stuff?
The Nexus analysis itself would not be subject to change, because what you would be setting under the Nexus analysis is the maximum allowable fee that could be charged. What is not before you tonight is the actual fee that the city then would charge. That then could be subject to some negotiation. So there is time on that front. And in my conversations with a couple of the developers that have sent letters, there's openness and interest in having those conversations.
So we're going to set the maximum, and if the city wanted to come in and further negotiations, you could come in under the maximum.
Yes, as a policy decision, the city council can choose not to charge the maximum fee, which is somewhat common, with cities. And there then could be, some negotiation through, say, a development agreement amendment or some other method. But even just as a policy choice, when we come back to you at a later date with the resolution and the ordinance to formally set what fees will be charged, the city council, within your policy authority, could choose not to charge that maximum Nexus fee, and recognizing, of course, that anytime you don't set that maximum Nexus, you do leave a gap of funding necessary to complete all of those infrastructure projects. But again, that is something that is within the policy purview of the city council.
Well, what I was looking for, and that answers the question, but what I'm looking for is maybe a little wiggle room so we can hear this, so we can get this done before July 1st, understanding this can be the maximum, and then we can talk about whatever it's going to be going forward, correct?
Correct. That's correct on the fee. Just one option, recognizing, the time of the night and the information that came in, last minute, within, from the community. You do have, and this is an option I just proposed to you, you do have a special meeting scheduled next Tuesday on the 28th. That's on broadband, where staff is going to be presenting to you options. We've been studying, broadband now for a little bit as a part of your interests, originally under ARPA. So not looking to add items to that agenda, certainly hoping to just keep that focused on broadband. But, in terms of complying with the law as well as proceeding forward and having some time to review the information, you would have available to you, and it's totally up to the City Council if you wanted to continue this public hearing until that date and maybe take that item after your broadband discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other comments, colleagues?
I'm going to ask again because I have not read the whole letter. I would like this to be delayed so all of my colleagues could, I don't know who has or hasn't, or who cares, but I do care. I want to read everything we need. And no, I didn't check my mail when I was walking between there and closed session, and then we were in closed session for a half hour. So no, I didn't check no, you've got mail. I didn't get that. So I would like to see us delay it until then, but that's obviously up to my colleagues, but I need to read that. I can't vote on this until I do.
So what directions do you want to give? You want to add it to the 28th?
Mayor, I have another board meeting on the 28th because of a special meeting, and I was actually going to take it via Zoom because my next meeting would be on Zoom, and I'd just be late to one and cut one out early. And like I said, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but what I'm looking for, probably selfishly, is listen to it. Are we going to change the max in 1 week? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. These are our numbers. Somebody might come in and argue, but understanding it's the max, and then through negotiation, we can charge what we want. When and if those projects come, and it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know what it is. But again, I don't know. I've said my piece. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So, want to continue with your presentation?
Sure, and we've covered some portions of what I was going to talk about, but we'll try to go through real quick here. But as you read that letter, and as you refer back to the studies, just a brief overview of the methodology by which we identified the maximum fee. And so I should emphasize that the goal of these studies is to just set what's the most we can set. And you do have that policy authority to set a fee less than that. So methodology, first of all, development projections. We figure out how much development is going to occur over the coming, and we use a period of about 20 years, 2020 to 2040. We identify from that all the list of infrastructure across all those categories that I identified a few minutes ago and what their costs are. We identify any known funding that we have for that infrastructure, and we subtract that out so that if we already have funding, we're not trying to raise that money. We subtract that out. We figure out of that list of infrastructure how much of the demand is coming from existing needs in the city versus how much is coming from new development. And then once we've figured all that out, we take the math, and you see a lot of that in the studies, and we allocate the remaining costs that are attributable to new development to our development forecast, and from there we get the maximum fees. Okay, the studies that you have tonight are proposed as an update to the Nexus studies that were adopted last for these two areas in 2013. So some key changes in the 2022 study. First of all, we've updated the development projections, and to give you a sense of how much development we're looking at over the next 20 years, and we're a couple of years in. We began work on this a couple of years ago, a little over 12,000 housing units. and about 4.5 million square feet of industrial development. Also about 1 million square feet of other kinds of development. But if you want to get a sense of what 4.5 million square feet of industrial is, there was a reference earlier today to one of the industrial buildings being built over in Cordelia. That's about 100,000 square feet, so you can figure 45 of those buildings being built over the next 20 years, including 10 are included in the study out near the train station. We've put together an updated list of infrastructure and costs. One key change, and I think this will be important as we come back to you and look at actually setting the fees, is that the 2013 study simply looked at development that was industrial and set a maximum fee for industrial. The updated study, though, gives us some options, and it splits industrial into two separate categories. One is manufacturing, and the city, our goal is to encourage manufacturing and the jobs. And so there's a category for manufacturing, and then there's essentially an everything else category, warehouse, distribution, speculative, and that will give the council the option to set different levels of fees if you wish to encourage one or the other kind of industrial. Another key change is that the studies create a new sub-area geography for charging fees for our heart of Fairfield. And we've heard loud and clear from the City Council that we're looking to incentivize development within the heart of Fairfield area. And we've included a methodology for allocating costs to new development in the heart of Fairfield area. And so that area right there is now a new geography for charging fees, and the methodology identified in the studies clearly allows us to charge lower fees for that area. And then finally, coming out of all that are the updated maximum fee amounts. If you look through the studies, there's lots and lots of discussion of the maximum fees, but just one quick chart to give you a sense of the 2013 study versus this current study, particularly as you read some of those letters to get a sense of, well, what's the real impact here? So at the top are a couple of maximum fees for residential development. Looking at our 2013 study with the numbers coming out of the 2013 study updated to today with inflation. So if you're building out in the Northeast area, the maximum fees in the 2013 study, a little over $24,000. In the 2022 study, it's a little over $25,000, so a relatively small increase. Over in Cordelia, the maximum that was allowed by the 2013 study with inflation to today, a little over $14,000, and under our new studies, a little over $15,000. So similar increase in the maximum, but you can see that all that extra infrastructure that has to get built for the houses out in the Northeast, that gets borne by them, but not necessarily by the houses elsewhere in the city. Heart of Fairfield, the big form of development that we expect to see in the Heart of Fairfield is multifamily. So for apartments, the 2013 study says we could charge $9,600. The 2022 study with that new analysis for the Heart of Fairfield area says $7,400 is the most we can charge for roadway impacts. And again, the council has the ability to choose a lower amount if you wish. And finally, industrial, and one of the letters comes from an industrial developer out in the Northeast. The 2013 study inflated to today says that we could charge that industrial developer almost $12 a square foot for their industrial development. The new studies there's a letter that challenges some of the methodology, shows a substantial reduction in the amount that we can charge, a little under $9, so more than $3 less under this study than our previous study. So we've talked about the letters and comments. We've talked about meeting with the developers, so I won't go over that. We have a recommendation in front of you to hold the public hearing. We are required to hold a public hearing before the council adopts the Nexus studies, and we're recommending that you adopt the resolution before you approving the studies. So with that, I'll turn it back to council.
Thank you, David. Madam Clerk, do we have any request to speak cards?
No cards, but I do see one hand is raised online.
Okay, let's take that, please.
Brian,
Okay,
could
we
you
have
put
someone
that
with the
speaker
phone
on, please?
number
Thank you.
Ending in 397. Go ahead and speak. Can you unmute yourself, please? Okay.
Hi, this is Zachary Wright with Sino and Discovery Homes. I wanted to just follow up with the fact, I did drop off a letter, the letter in question that was emailed at 5 o'clock. I did deliver a hard copy. I am happy to read that letter tonight if you want me to in whole. But there's quite a few errors and admissions that we have discovered, and just looking at this Nexus study, it just feels a bit rushed, and for that reason, we're requesting that you at least postpone this vote until we've gotten a chance to work with the city and resolve some of these other outstanding matters. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Zachary. Are there any other speakers?
No, there are not.
Okay. So I'll close the public hearing now and bring it back for council action, please.
Dave,
Scott?
Dave, can you go back a couple screens? That one. So the fees are going up $1,000 because you made a comment that said with inflation today. So are those 2013 the actual numbers?
So, and again, this is if those studies were inflated to today, what the maximum we could charge. Those are not the fees that the city charges today. We discount some of those fees today. But if we wanted to, using the old studies, the figures that you see there are what we could charge today using the analysis in the studies from 2013.
That's confusing.
So annually, the fees can inflate.
I know what inflation means.
Yeah, no, and yeah, so.
Sorry, I'm getting tired.
Let me try something else. In 2013, the studies that are published from 2013 show a maximum amount that we could charge for those categories. There's a whole bunch of other categories as well. If you look at the 2013 study, it shows a number. Let's look at just the top one, 24,208. The number that you actually see in that study is quite a bit lower. It's about 27% lower than that. But over the last 8 years, inflation, about 27%, would raise that number to 24,208. The 2022 number is the new Nexus in today's dollars. So they're both in today's dollars.
Do you have the actual 2013 numbers?
I don't have them in front of me, no.
I don't need them now, but
yeah,
I would rather.
You could quickly do the math, and it's 27% lower than whatever those numbers on the left-hand side are.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Moy, please.
All right, well, I haven't gone through all this letter, but there is a little bit that I am going to read out loud here because I think it speaks to something that we've been talking about tonight. And it says here, the city is bifurcating approval of the new transportation development impact fees into two parts. One, consideration of the final EPS report at the June 21st City Council meeting, and consideration of two, the consideration of the proposed fee slate. And so, sorry, it's BS there. Sorry, Scotty. But anyway, so thus, I'm jumping way down now. If the city council were to approve the final EPS study as the Nexus study underlying the fee slate, it would essentially be approving the very fee. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm talking. Then zip it, okay? Thank you, Scott. I mean, my God, that's so rude. Anyway, thus, if the city council were to approve the final EPS study as a Nexus study underlying the fee slate, it would essentially be approving the very fees that it says it will not consider until a later time. That's what you were talking about. So that, I just thought that would raise a concern. Anyway, but I haven't read the rest of it, but I thought that that was interesting.
Any other comments, colleagues? No? Okay. City manager?
on adopting the resolution?
Well, yeah, I don't know if you want to take a vote on whether or not to adopt it, or if someone wants to table it, or continue the public hearing to a later date, or deny taking a motion. Options are up to council.
So if I could give you all some guidance if you like, obviously you can do whatever you like. This council is very good at working informally, but it looks like here you are looking for maybe some more formal processes. Anybody can make a motion at this point. The public hearing has been closed. You've heard all the public comments. You can continue deliberating and debating it as long as you like. It's your decision to make. The normal motion, obviously, that is normally made in this case is that someone would make a motion to approve the resolution, which is Resolution 2022-146, adopting the updated nexus studies for the citywide AB 1600 traffic impact fee and for the Northeast Area Development fees. If you do that, I would say probably because of the nature of it, that somebody read out the entire resolution, just so we're clear what motion is being made. It can be seconded, and then you vote as normal. Any member, as you all know, can make a motion to table the motion, and you can do it one of two ways. You can make a motion to table to a date uncertain, in which case it would need a new motion to bring it back on the table at some future date. Or you could make a motion to table it to a date that that person making the motion would state. Like any motion, that would need to be seconded. So if it's seconded, then you go ahead and you vote on it. So those are your options. I mean, there's like 100 other options that no one ever talks about in Rosenberg's Rules of Orders, but I don't think we need to go through those. Those are the two I think that are most on people's minds right now. So if there's anything else, though, let me know and I can give you other options.
Councilman Tim, please.
Well, what I was going to say, too, is I think you need to understand the ramifications if this is tabled and we go past July 1st. When would this come back? Any reasonable answer? Because we don't know what the state's going to do.
Yeah, if you table it to a date uncertain, state law does require a 30-day notice. So we'd have to at least have a 30-day lead before it comes back, so well after the 1st of July.
Well, and I think your question is, how long would it take us to do the new methodology? Real quick, I'm looking at our consultant.
And just to clarify, sorry, if you table it, you are tabling what is before you currently, and you can't change it. It's just sitting there. The way to change it would be to either not do anything with it, to just not make a motion and direct staff to go back and bring you something new, or you could formally reject it and then tell staff to come back. Again, we work informally here, so I think if you were just to say we don't want to make a motion and vote on it, staff go back, I think they would understand that direction and do that. But if you table it, you're basically putting the current resolution in a box, and it can't be changed until you bring it back and either accept it or reject it.
So then, and I understand that, but, and if we got to that end, then now what we're talking about is negotiations from the developers that don't want it to back to staff, back and forth with attorneys, then comes the city council. You just watched us talk an hour and a half over a golf course restaurant. This is probably just a little bit more important and expensive. I'm very comfortable in making a motion to approve what you just presented. Matter of fact, I will make that motion.
Moved. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain because I haven't read all the information.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right,
That's okay. Yep.
So I'm going to abstain.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Yeah.
Can the motion be repeated?
Yeah. Repeat your motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff report with the nexus numbers.
This is a motion to approve Resolution 2022-146 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield adopting updated nexus studies for the citywide AB 1600 traffic impact fee and for the Northeast Area Development fees. Is that correct, Councilmember Tim?
Councilor, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
All in favor?
And Rick seconded the motion. Should
All
I
in
take
favor?
roll?
I'm sorry?
Aye.
Abstain.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
And one abstention, okay? So, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's no other business
Wait,
before
but
the...
before we adjourn,
Yes, okay.
can I ask the vice mayor, did you have a birthday yesterday?
That was yesterday.
I would ask that we dismiss the meeting without singing, but in
No,
recognition-
we want to sing. We want to sing.
Latan, step to the mic.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Green. Happy birthday to you. Now we are adjourned. Good night.